We need to believe people of color when they point out racism they experience. We need to stop telling people of color we're shocked about what's happening. Stop pointing out how this feels new or different or surprising. We need to stop asking our Black, Indigenous, and people of color friends to process this with us, to witness and support our anger and outrage. It's a daily experience for people of color, and our white shock just shows how protected ourselves to be. As Van Jones says, it's too late to be innocent. And we need to shut up about our own experiences of oppression, comparing them as if there's an equivalency. There's just not.
Imagine your friend is building a house and they ask you to help, but you've never built a house before. So it'd probably be a good idea for you to put on some protective gear and listen to the person in charge. Otherwise, someone's gonna get seriously hurt. Look, I'm helping! It's the exact same idea when it comes to being an ally. An ally is a person that wants to fight for the equality of a marginalized group that they're not a part of. We need your help building this house, but you probably should listen so you know what to do first.
I've learned to avoid mic drops. Like, conversation over, I won, you're so wrong, I'm so right. Like,
what happens when you do that?
Well, first off, it doesn't do anything. Honestly, it might make, if someone has a resonating stance where they're a racist or have racist tendencies, you might actually make those stronger. You might make them resent your cause more. And the point is you want to keep the conversation open. Even if you don't solve it this minute, this day, or tomorrow, or the next week, the last thing you want to do is close the channel and shut the door. And mic drops end the conversation.
Listen, stop putting pressure on your Black friends to help you be a good ally. If you are going to be an ally, then the onus is on you to do the work, okay? Step one in being a good ally is to listen. When Black people are talking, be quiet. Step two is to do the work, okay?
For many white people, the mere suggestion that white has meaning will cause us to erupt in defensiveness. For many of your listeners, the fact that I'm generalizing right now about white people will set off the defensiveness. Individualism is a really precious ideology for white people, and we do not like to be generalized about.
Black people are tired. We tired of this, we tired of that, we're tired of systemic racism, we're tired of institutionalized racism, we're tired of white privilege, we're tired of white supremacy, and quite frankly, we're tired of you. So please do the work. Do the work without needing us to coax you into it or for us to have to encourage you and, oh yeah.
As a white person, I was just raised to expect the world to be mine in absolutely any field. I see myself represented. I see myself represented in all my teachers and my curriculum and my heroes and heroines. And so just even the suggestion that we need to make sure we're being fair and including other people seems to set the white collective off.
What I would say to white allies or people who are trying to be allies is use Google. Google is your friend.
Just do your research. It's very obvious what's going on right now. You have Trump, you have the supremacist groups. There's just all types of things that's going on, negative things that we should not be going through.
At the end of the day, when you see something wrong, like say something about it. When you see people being mistreated, say something, do something.
If you are quick to say, I'm not a racist, then you should be quick to correct the people around you who are racist.
Say, hey, listen, I love Black people, I love red people, I love green people, I love everybody. How can we as a whole get along and help you fight this fight?
I'm not gonna handhold. I'm not gonna listen to white-splaining. I'm not gonna do that. So when people are like, or I get COVID a lot, I'm afraid of COVID. Fool, I might have lupus, and I've been out there for 5 months. I throw up on the way to actions and then march for hours. I don't wanna hear about COVID. That makes me so angry. And also, every action I've been to, that's where I feel the safest. Everybody has a mask. Everybody has hand sanitizer. People are so careful at protests. No excuse. If you are white and you have not been in the street at least 5 to 10 times in the last 5 months, you need to ask yourself what side of history you want to be on. Pick a side. You are with or without. That's it. With us or against us.
Get your cousins, your mother, your father, your racist grandfather, who's still running things, still running police departments, still running the FBI, still running the international banking businesses, still running the schools, still choosing the people and the places and the institutions and furthering the institutions that oppress us. It's real simple.
Because it's most likely that people will be willing to receive that message from you than they are from people of color.
A lot of the ideas that we need to be pushed through starts with white families as a whole having an understanding of the systematic issues that we face, and then doing the work within your own communities, within those white spaces, to dismantle all these perceptions of what it means to be Black in America.
You know what's happening. You see what's happening. When you see us getting gunned down, say something about it. Let other people know why it's wrong. Don't just let us be the only ones fighting for our lives, because we're all human.
What I need y'all to understand is this is not about you. Sit down, shut up, and listen to the people in need.
I watched my students become what I told them they were. I watched little, wonderful, brown-eyed white people become vicious, ugly, nasty, discriminating, domineering people in the space of 15 minutes. I watched brilliant, little, blue-eyed, white Christian children become timid and frightened and angry and unable to learn in the space of 15 minutes. If you do that with a whole group of people for a lifetime, you change them psychologically. If you do that for a lifetime, what do you suppose that does to them? You find out that there are people of color who refuse to live down to our expectations of them. I am now watching, at the national level, that exercise that I did based on eye color being reenacted in the government of the United States of America. I've done this with people of all ages for the last 50 years. Now think about that. Next year it will be the 50th anniversary of the killing of Martin Luther King Jr. and the beginning of the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise. When are we going to learn? When are we going to put a stop to this? If I were Black, they'd have killed me a long time ago. And if I were Black and saying the things I say, I wouldn't be alive. We live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. White people are the free, and people of color have to be brave. I want this situation to change. I want it to be such that no Black person has to have courage to get up in the morning, any more than I, as a white person, have to have courage to get up in the morning.
On May 25th, 2020, George Floyd went out to buy groceries and never came home. He was murdered by Officer Derek Chauvin, who kneeled on this man's neck for 9 minutes, which is 540 seconds, that bystanders stood by, other police officers, and did not do anything. If this is shocking to you, then that is privilege, because this has been happening all the time in the United States. For whatever reason you weren't paying attention before, now is the time to pay attention. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention.
Every year we observe Martin Luther King Sunday. And sometimes the message comes from Dr. King himself. We repeat his words because we have not yet learned to live into the vision that he cast for us. And in other years, we lift up the voices of African American poets and preachers and prophets because too often their words have been dropped from the canon of American literature and American history.
I think back on the African American people in America. I think how that they were taken against their wills, put in the belly of ships, brought over here, beat, cussed. Many of them died in the guts of those ships, thrown overboard. They were pulled from families over there. You ain't never heard a gut-wrenching song. Do you hear a Black person sing one of those old Black Negro spirituals? Nobody knows. I can't sing it like that, see, because I hadn't experienced what they be. When you've experienced hell, it comes out of the voice. I said, when you experience hell, it comes out of the voice. If you're one of those people that you got problem with Black people or whatever, you better shut your mouth, because they're God's people. You better hear what I'm saying to you. You better shut your white mouth. You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep South and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you.
I've been an activist since I was 17 years old, and I'm a senior citizen now, so that's a lot of years. Some of the groups that I've worked with have been peace groups, some have been people of color led, some have been environmental groups. When I work with groups that are people of color identified, like the NAACP, the Southside Christian Center in Chicago, then I operate in a different way. I'm a white ally. I am not a leader. I'm a follower. And I promote that to other white activists who work in with various groups.
As an ally, that's what's required, our whole selves, not just what's available in spare time when it's convenient and when it's comfortable. As an ally for communities under ongoing attack, in trauma, in harm's way, what's required is for me to show up and keep showing up. And a term that I've heard that names this essential interdependence of all of us is co-conspirator.
I was driving with a friend of mine, and she's gay, white, grew up mostly without any African Americans around her. And we were talking about the protesting, especially with cops getting off for basically mowing down black men. And she was, it was the specific case where it was a cop who said that there was a gun in the car, but actually, and they got off anyway. And she was like, I don't understand why these people are protesting. I think they're just hurting themselves. And why can't they just get over it? And I said, Mandy, if you have been persecuted by cops, you've been pulled over leaving a gay bar. Like, how angry were you? She's like, I was so mad, I couldn't believe it. I said, but so think about it. If you were a black man who gets pulled over for being black, how angry would you be? So how angry would our community be if people were being mowed down and killed with no accountability after that? And I think the statement was good, but again, I came at her in this like aggressive way, so she was just like, I feel like you're attacking me.
It isn't about hating cops. It's about understanding the history of law enforcement hasn't been equal, right? And that's why we have to say Black Lives Matter, because the system has said they don't. You know, and if you don't understand that, you won't understand Black Lives Matter. You'll respond to it with, well, but all lives, but what about my life? My life matters, doesn't it? Bleep, 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 bleep. What about me? I know your life matters, Snowflake, precious, I know. Point is, every cop in America knows their lives matter. And every teacher knows it too, and every boss, every employer, every bank officer who they might go to get a loan, they know their lives matter. It's taken for granted. You don't have to specify that which we take for granted. That's why we don't have to have White History Month, because we got a whole bunch of them. They just go by tricky names like May and June and July and August and shit like that.
I believe that in an NAACP meeting, for example, I go to them every month, and I've probably said 10 words in the last 3 years in those meetings. I do see a lot of white people piping up in those meetings, and I think I cringe, especially when the room is, let's say, 50% white people, 50% African Americans, and African Americans only contribute 20 or 30% of the airtime. I find that unacceptable. It's a good idea for white allies, in my mind, to just zip it and in those meetings, listen hard and look for opportunities to help.
A week ago, our kids were playing at the park. Another mom from a school where one of my daughters goes, she made a blanket statement about people on welfare and they're just using it up. When I said, okay, well, statistically, maybe not quite as pervasive as you think, but hey, let's talk about this one client that I have that's having a really hard time getting up and out of where she is, and just kind of went through her experience and how hard she has had getting out of the situation that she is in right now. It made her real. This woman and I have a good relationship, and so she trusted my voice talking about this experience, and certainly having 10 years of legal aid experience and doing the work that I do, I can say, look, this is hundreds of clients across ethnic lines, socioeconomic lines, and this is the majority of what I see. And what you're saying is not what I've seen in my experience.
As a white person in particular, we sometimes use the words, I don't feel safe, to mean I don't feel comfortable. And it's fine for us to not feeling comfortable, given that Black and brown people in our country aren't safe. And it's in part because our white comfort has been prioritized. So let's not demand safe space, but let's show up for brave space, for necessary space. And let's get better at discomfort, because it's the price for people of color's actual safety.
I think that Obama was symbolic. I think what Obama did was allow us to feel really good about ourselves under very narrow terms. I would ask any white person who voted for Obama and sees that as kind of their evidence that they're free of racism to ask themselves, how did Obama's presidency change the lived experience for Black people in this country day in and day out? I don't think that it did. It was important symbolically, but mass incarceration, school to prison pipeline, these things have not diminished, right? In many ways, they've increased. I see Trump as a reaction to Obama because Trump gave permission to the resentment that was roiling under the surface.
Resentment of what?
Of Black advancement, of Black uppityness, of, to use a Jim Crow analogy, you will step off the curb when I come down it. You will not look me in the eye. His racism is explicit and undeniable, and that wasn't a deterrent, I think white people have to look really hard at. Why was that not a deterrent to you?
Most of the stuff that I'm learning online is coming from Black people. They're teaching me when really they shouldn't have to. We should be teaching ourselves and teaching each other. We should be using our privilege to talk about it as much as we can. Self-reflect on what you've done to contribute to racism, either overtly or inadvertently. This means challenging your own unconscious bias. I know I'm guilty of this. I know that we all have thought something in the past, whether it be an unconscious bias or not, that has contributed to racism in our world. Watch documentaries, watch the 13th Amendment, and don't just teach yourself about the big overt things like Martin Luther King, slavery, all of that. Read up on redlining, gentrification, the incarceration rate for Black people in the United States. I went on Twitter, I saw a thread of petitions that hadn't met their goal, and it was like 30. I finished it within 5 minutes. It's not hard. It's the easiest thing that you can do, and it does make a difference. This isn't about white people. This isn't about us. This is about amplifying their voices, making this world better for them. Remember to make this lifelong. Black Lives Matter is certainly not just a trendy movement. It's not going to last for a couple weeks. You have to be actively anti-racist from now until the day you die.
I know that not everybody in this room identifies as white, but if you do, if you identify as white, I'd like to ask you to just say to yourself inside, I am white. I am white. What did you notice when you said that to yourself? What did you notice in terms of emotions rising, thoughts appearing? What were your reactions? Privilege. Jinx. Confidence. Self. Shame, guilt. What your actual physical face looks like, skin color, what that looks like, literally. Self-satisfied. Lucky. Labeled. Fortunate. Why does it matter? I wish it didn't matter, but it does.
I can predict what this white person is going to say right now. And sure enough, they say it. So I was taught to treat everyone the same. I have people of color in my family. I was in Teach for America. That I marched in the 60s. I taught in a diverse school. The evidence that white people give for their lack of racism is very revealing to what we think racism is. Despite all those narratives, I was taught to treat everyone the same, I don't see color, our outcomes haven't improved. By virtually every measure, there's racial inequality in this country, and by many measures, it's increasing, not decreasing.
There are so many unjust things happening in our country that have been happening, that have systemic roots in the way our society functions, and it needs to change. Understand things white people probably don't know about, which are redlining, tone policing, code switching. These are things we don't have to worry about that affect Black people's everyday lives. Know about structural versus individual racism. Individual racism is typically focused on when talking about the narrative surrounding racism in the United States. It's very individually based rather than recognizing that the way the United States is run is actually structural racism, and it enforces inequalities among races, and it's built into the fabric of our society, and that's what needs to be dismantled in order to make change on an individual level.
I'm a very cutthroat individual. I don't give second chances. I see things in very black and white. I don't do half-stepping. There's no fence riding for me. If you are a person who took offense to being spoken harshly to by a member of the Black community, you don't belong in this movement. You have a problem being spoken to by a strong Black man or woman, you need to understand and think about why you felt bothered and offended by that. If you felt threatened by that, you need to ask yourself why. Why? Was it because they were Black, or is it because you felt embarrassed, or because they were right? If you got spoken down to, okay, check yourself. Why did it happen? Were they right? And if they weren't, did you go to them and say, I hear what you're saying, but this made me feel some kind of way? Did you respect them enough to have an adult conversation? All of this is fear-based. All of that is fear-based. Because then what happens is, oh, well, now you're afraid to show up. Now you're afraid to say anything. Why? Because now you're afraid? Did you verbalize that to the person who reprimanded you? No. Why? Why are you so afraid to talk to Black people? That's really, I don't understand. It's so...
Is it ingrained in you from birth or something?
I don't know. And I think it's hard for me because I grew up in such a diverse place. I don't understand that. But I forget that some people grew up in, really racist rural parts of the country.
Hello, and welcome to tonight's episode of Cutting Through the Culture. I am Chad O. Jackson, and tonight we're going to be discussing the question as to whether or not white liberals mean well. Before we get into the discussion, I wanted to briefly bring on the panelists and allow them to do very brief introductions, and maybe chop it up a little bit, talk about some things that are irrelevant to tonight's subject before we jump right in. But before I do that, I wanted to give a shout out to the early supers that we had come in. Shout out to Vintage Goods 1551 says, Chad, shut your white mouth. I wasn't aware that my mouth is white, but thank you for the $5 super chat. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being number one tonight. Appreciate it. We also have one from Jesus Loves You. God bless the chat. Keisha, Chuck, Chad, and Blanche. Double check mark. Appreciate it. Thank you all for the early monetary love this evening. I started a poll. If you haven't already, go ahead and opine, give your little opinion, say yay or nay. You do believe or don't believe that white people, or white liberals in particular, mean well with their political intentions, with their political activism, with the things that they say online, all this, that, and a third. I'll give my answer after the panel gives their brief remarks. If you haven't already, please like this video, whether you're watching us tonight on Twitter or YouTube or Rumble or wherever you're watching us this evening. Please don't forget to like it and to spread the message. First up, to give their brief opening remarks, let's go with Blanche. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
Doing good. How's your week been?
My week has been pretty good. Nothing major. Just been making some content. That's all.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm looking forward to getting into the discussion. Next up, we have Miss Keisha King. How are you today, Miss Keisha?
Hello, I'm good. Just got in from traveling. So I just made it. I actually literally just made it. And I was listening to the montage and I'm like, gosh, I didn't know so much about Black people. I was informed. I'm like, okay, all right.
There you
So
go.
I'm
There
looking
you
forward
go.
to the conversation.
There you go. Looks like Chuck will be late tonight. He's not in the green room. So before we get into tonight's discussion, it's been kind of a knees heavy week. I wanted to talk briefly about our friend Candace Owens. Apparently she's no longer with the Daily Wire. And I see a lot of people opining about that online. Pretty Liddy, she follows our YouTube channel and she's a voice in our chat. She made an interesting point, and I can't confirm or verify this in any way, but her point was, if you look at whenever she began her career with the Daily Wire, it was, I think, March 19th of 2021, and she signed a 3-year contract, which happened to have ended in March 19th of 2024. And so, in Pretty Liddy's opinion, it was neither a firing nor was it Candace quitting. It was just a sheer fact of not re-upping on the contract. But it didn't help, obviously, that Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro differed in opinion with regard to the Hamas and Israel conflict. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Ooh, I have a lot.
And I don't want to like really go deep on it, but I just wanted to get your guys' like just touch base on it, if you will. But go ahead, Keisha.
Well, I found it interesting that I've never seen Candace be very biblically promoting Christianity. I've really never, and I mean, and I don't follow hers like that, so I can't say she never has. But I just found it funny that when this whole thing started with her and Ben, like she just started posting, all these scriptures, and it was just kind of bizarre. And I posted today on Twitter, I was like, I think there is a new thing now called political Christianity. And I think there are people who are using conservatism and like blending it in, conservatism, Republican, and Christian values, loosely Christian values, and pushing that as Christianity under this kind of America first, I don't know, isolation, real, just bizarre. And I just don't find, I'm sorry, I don't find her Christian, stance right now as genuine. And I'm so, Lord, forgive me. I am not trying to judge this woman's salvation. I'm really not. It's just my opinion. And if I'm wrong, if I am wrong, I'm wrong. I don't know her, or anything like that. I just don't find it authentic. And I don't think she understands. I think Ben Shapiro was right. I don't think she understands the conflict, the Israel-Palestine conflict. And I really don't think she understands the Bible all that much either. Sorry, I don't.
Well, to be fair, I don't think Ben Shapiro does either. And that's not a knock on Ben Shapiro. I don't think anyone really fully understands the conflict. And I would add to that which is that when it comes to war and rumors of war and geopolitical conflicts, the fact is these things are so convoluted and complex that really to opine on it as if one has any degree of expertise without being explicitly close to the action is in some sense a kind of fool's errand, because you have those who are pro-Palestine who are humanizing the fact that, there's kids who are caught in the conflict and this is why we need a ceasefire. Look at Israel. They're going after kids. They're shooting kids. Mm-hmm. And then what do you do then about the fact that, well, Hamas was the first Well, it actually goes back further than that. But if we're talking about October, they were the first aggressors. And so, you know what I mean? Like, was Israel supposed to just sit back and take it? You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's easy in this kind of postmodern Western idealism to have an opinion of, well, you know, Israel is being too aggressive and this, that, and the third. Is like, people would do well to just shut their mouths. The fact is, you're not involved in this thing in any real sense. All you can do is opine on it, and your opinion is probably wrong. And so, anyway, we can get more into it. Let's go ahead and bring in Chuck. I didn't really realize that he was in the green room. How are you today, Chuck?
Yeah, man. Me personally, I mean, I'm doing well. You know, just, you know, like I said, from a personal point of view. Sorry for my what's the word?
Tardiness.
Tardiness. That's what I'm looking for. I had a black moment. I'm sorry, my vocabulary left me. Maybe because I was a bit too excited to join the show. So I kind of was, anyway. Yeah, man. Do white liberals mean well? I think they do, and I know I'm in the majority. I'm in the minority.
Well, before we get into that, the main topic at hand, the
I heard
final chapter, as it were. Let's go ahead and land the plane on this. I wanted to get your. I wanted first of all Keisha to finish her opinion, and then I wanted you to give your opinion. Well, let's give Blanche an opportunity to give his opinion, and then you give your opinion on the whole thing. And I understand that we're not all going to agree on it. And I know tonight's not about Candace Owens, nor is it about Hamas and Israel, but it's something. I mean, Candace Owens, everybody knows who she is. I think it's worthwhile for the audience to hear what Cutting Through the Culture has to say on the matter. But go ahead, Keisha. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So, you know, when it comes to this conflict, you know, to me, I see it very much from a spiritual, biblical view. And I take that view and then I bring it into the physical view. I mean, you know, we can no one likes to see, you know, innocent children die, you know, I mean, but if you read the Bible, there were times when God said everything got to go. And I mean, I'm not going to argue. I mean, I'm not going to argue with God. And I'm not saying that these people are God, for sure. I'm not saying anybody in this situation is God, either people. I'm saying that it's because we sit inside of time and we are not God, none of us. And God does say from time that it's got to go. That reality of it being in the earth and watching things like that happen, it is painful. It is. God's word is true yesterday, today, and it will be true forever. His promises to Israel are true. When he made the covenant with Abraham, until, you know, it will never end. Like, it is his word. It never ends. And so I don't see this break of God's covenant, which is that is how I view people who are, why I'm calling them political Christians, because you can't read the Bible and not see Israel. I don't understand that. I don't understand that view. Anyway, like I said, we can talk about that later.
Go ahead, Blanche.
I think that when it comes to all of this, the issue is Christ. And so if you think about the Bible, the blessings of Abraham, the covenant that God made with Abraham, is available to the heathen and the Gentile through faith. And so what we're talking about is an Old Testament biblical stance of these people being God's chosen people. At the end of the day, if we were in those times, these same people would have been the ones putting Christ to death. We would have a whole different opinion of them because they literally don't believe in the Messiah. Not just don't believe in the Messiah, but actually have a negative view of Christ. And so if we're talking about this thing from a spiritual standpoint, neither one of these people believe in Christ at all. You have one side that doesn't believe in Christ, period, as God in the flesh, and the other one just believes that he was a prophet or a messenger, and it doesn't really go beyond that. And so we have these two sides. At the end of the day, both sides don't follow Christ. And so again, if we were in those biblical times, these two groups would be anti-Christ. They wouldn't be pro-Christian. So at the end of the day, so in this situation, what do we offer anybody's situation but salvation? There's nothing to offer Israel because there's too much history, and Palestine as well. There's no way to, because there's too much has already been done. What are you going to offer them? I can't do anything. Honestly, I don't even really care that much. At the same time, I don't want to see innocent people die. People are going to fight regardless. Folks are going to fight to the end of time. People are going to be warned, and it's never going to stop. But the Bible is very clear on us not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principality, but against rulers of darkness and wickedness in high places. So God is telling us that the wars that we see that are physical between man aren't really the real wars. The real wars take place in high places. That means that there's something behind the physical confrontations between Israel and Hamas, or Israel and Palestine, or whatever. But as far as Candace Owens goes, I believe that Candace Owens is using the Bible because she can stand on the Bible and go against Ben Shapiro or anybody that's Jewish. She can say, this is my, and she mentioned this. She mentioned that, and she brought up a good point. How is your Judaism more important than my Christianity? And she's right. And at the end of the day, when we're talking about having this argument with this stuff, to me, she's using it for that reason. Do I think it's genuine? Completely no, I don't. I don't think it's genuine. But I understand why she's using that argument, because if I want to critique someone or someone's, how can I critique them unless I have something that can cover me, which is, quote unquote, the Bible and Christianity. I think most of this stuff is theatrics and theater. I think it's entertainment. I don't think that Candace Owens, soon she left the wire, got fired, whatever, started asking for money. So I don't think none of this is really, I'm not taking it at face value. I think a lot of this stuff is orchestrated, is planned. I don't know. I think most of the people are capped that we see in these spaces.
Yeah.
I just want to say the Bible is clear, though, that God is not through with Israel all the way up until the end. He's not through. There's so much. God is the promises that he made to Abraham in the beginning are true today. We are grafted into that promise. Why God chose Israel as his people, the land, the people, I don't know, but I know that's what he said. And I know his promises, even in the New Testament. You can't have the New Testament without the Old. It's one whole word. It is his whole entire word. And it doesn't, there's no separation of, we separated, Old Testament, New Testament, but it's his word is his word, and it is complete, and it is true from Genesis to Revelation. And so I just want to make that note that there is no separation of God's, because he said, I forget the scripture, but there is a scripture where he says to the Jew first, then to the Gentile. This is in the New Testament, and there, anyway, we can talk about that.
Well, I mean, I know throughout the Old Testament, every book points to Christ, literally every book. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, from the line of David, you ultimately get Christ, and Christ is the firstborn who calls all the nations, all the tribes, all the tongues to himself. And from Christ, you get a remnant. And so the fact is, when the veil was torn and the sheet came down from the heavens, what did the voice say? It says, don't call unclean what God has called clean. And so Gentiles are now considered clean, long as they put on the blood of Christ, long as they step into that family and that royal priesthood. And so the fact is, I mean, anyone who's grown up in the, late 20th century kind of evangelical movement are pretty familiar with this kind of hyper pro-Israel stance with which the church has taken. And I think, to be fair, there has been a lot of kind of misinterpretation. And I'm not saying this is you, Keisha, but there's been a lot of misinterpretation of what that exactly means, to almost to the point of a kind of Israel fetish, when the reality is Israel is not the point as much as Christ is the point. But heretofore, I've been very much an observer of this kind of national conversation, this international conversation, I should say. And my conscience is clear with regard to Christ being the point. And as far as these wars and stuff are concerned, as I see throughout the Old Testament, Israel as a people were extremely stubborn, like very stubborn beyond belief. We read about them not even having enough patience to wait for Moses to come down from Mount Sinai before they started building golden calves and having, mass sex orgies and all these things. But God, much like he demonstrates with Hosea, who married a whore, God communicated to Israel and to the masses of the people that regardless of how wayward we are, he's still faithful, and he was faithful to the very end, insofar that Christ came down and did exactly what Hosea was tasked with doing, which is to lay down his life for his bride. And so I think that a lot of the conversation that we have surrounding this, a lot of the time that we busy ourselves in terms of like talking about things that actually don't quite matter at the end of the day is time that should be spent on talking about the glory of Christ, the glory of the gospel, how worthy and how great he is to forgive. And that's what we should be spending our time on. But I feel what we have been doing, and I'm not saying we on this panel, I'm saying we as far as like the internets, is we've made so much about the Hamas-Israel conflict, and we're kind of spinning our wheels and aren't really going anywhere. But anyway, I'm doing the same thing right now. I'll give Chuck the final word on this topic.
Thank you. I've been itching because it's funny that how this whole thing sort of played out, and Chad kind of left the floor open to kind of briefly go into this before we get into the meat of the subject for tonight, because I was debating on whether to make a comment or say something about it before we even got going, or maybe I was going to save it for my closeout at the end, because as I'm sitting back and watching all of this, particularly as it relates to Candace Owens no longer being employed, I guess, with the Daily Wire, I was sitting back and I was like, I said, you know what? Scrap it, screw it. Everything in my Rolodex, schedule-wise, everything that I have planned, my next YouTube, scrap all that. I got to deal with this. I got to deal with this. And within the next few weeks, people's like, just be on the lookout. Because I'm bringing some heat. I was on Keisha's show a few months ago speaking about this. And, I was, dropping some bombs, at least from my point of view. But of course, I'm biased because I was part of the whole production. Yeah, pardon my expression. But see, now I got to nuke their ass. Because for me, Blanche made some good points. Again, he talked about how both Jews and Muslims don't acknowledge the Messiah and so on. I like Keisha's term, political Christians. I really like that. But there have always been Christians that have made arguments against various wars at various times for that very reason alone, which is the fact that they are quote unquote Christians. This same kind of anti-war spirit, regardless of whatever conflict you're talking about, is the exact same rhetoric that the progressive left was using at their disposal at the behest of the extreme left back during the time of World War II. Somebody in the comment section talked about the Bolsheviks slaughtering Russian Christians, Eastern Orthodox Christians. Well, the Bolsheviks slaughtered observant and religious Jews as well. And make no mistake about it, the majority of Bolsheviks were themselves Jews. But make no mistake about this, that there is no segment of the human population more hateful and spiteful towards religious Jews than secular Jews. Just sit back and go before a conference of non-believing, non-practicing, ethnic, secular Jews and speak to them about God, and speak to them about religion, or even speak to them about the Israeli Hamas conflict, and see what you run into. You see, I deal with what I know, right? And I'm no theologian. I don't pretend to be a biblical scholar, nor do I pretend to be confident in my interpretation of scripture. I'll leave that to my other co-panelists, but I am, in fact, a historian. And I know that Jews have oftentimes been the canary in the coal mine. Whenever this, I know we don't like to talk about it, we don't like to hear it, and there's all kinds of debates going on about anti-Semitism and what exactly does it mean, right? But whenever you began to see this kind of spiteful, you heard the comments from Chuck Schumer recently, you got Gerald Nadler, the Biden administration, there are Jews rife within his cabinet, Blinken and other individuals, and make no mistake about it, from Joe Biden and his financial support of the Iranian regime, Barack Obama's endorsement of the enemies of Israel, going all the way back to men like Jimmy Carter and FDR, who are not kind or not friendly to Israel at all. Oh, I am going to go to my YouTube channel and I'm going to lay this out fact by fact for everyone to see, historically and philosophically, because I think a lot of people are confused. There are a lot, because people have very little historical points of reference, because there are too many people on the internet who are just Johnny-come-latelys. They have no knowledge and no understanding, let alone of biblical interpretation and scriptural interpretation. They have no knowledge of history. All sorts of global conflicts, at least for the past century and a half, many of them, particularly conflicts on a grand and global scale, begin with this kind of eschewing, or it begins with this I don't know necessarily want to say this systematic attack, or again, I want to be very careful in terms of how I word it. But like I said, oftentimes Jews are the canary in the coal mine. This just was not a German thing. This wasn't just a Nazi thing. It was also a Bolshevik thing. It was also a communist thing. And far as Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens goes, I would take Ben Shapiro over Candace Owens any day when it comes to intellect. Now, again, it doesn't mean that, this doesn't mean that if Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro are at odds with one another, that Candace Owens may not say something a time or two where, yeah, okay, I see where Candace is coming from there. But if you're talking about some kind of spat over history or spat, because again, I'm not Jewish, and I'm not Jewish for a reason. But again, for me, I set all of that aside, because this is not a question about salvation. You're talking about geopolitical conflict, military war, territory, the clashing of civilizations and the clashing of cultures. Now you're talking about something completely different. But again, if you want to say, well, who do you side with today? I don't know anything about the Daily Wire. I don't know how they conduct their business. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Don't know, don't care. It ain't my problem. It ain't my business. I'm not interested. But if you want to sit up here and put Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens and sit each of them at a lectern and have them debate a topic, I'll put my money on Ben Shapiro any day. Candace Owens is a mental midget compared to Ben Shapiro, and I don't give a damn who gets upset about it. But when it comes to me and how I feel, all I'm going to say is, within the next couple of weeks, be on the lookout, because a lot of you neo-populist conservatives, we are going to pay a huge cost for our moral equivalence. We're going to pay a huge cost for our moral confusion on this issue. You wait and see. It may not affect Christians today, but it will. Mark my words. That's all I got to say about that. I don't understand a lot of these newfangled, again, no historical point of reference, because there are too many Johnny-come-latelys. Too many people have no knowledge of the 20th century, let alone knowledge of biblical tradition. And that's all I got to say about that.
Shout out to GFB for the $10 super sticker. Really appreciate it. Also got one from Deborah Linnell. Preach, Chuck. Fire, 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 heart, heart, heart. Appreciate it. So, on to tonight's matter at hand. Do white liberals mean well? I'm going to take a stab at the question, and then I want to pass it around the panel before we jump into tonight's subject. I would say, in a word, yes, they mean well. But that's not the issue. The issue is that many of these white liberals, just like most of us in not only this country, but the world, have been given over to a reprobate mind. And we believe in our own way. The problem with that is that the Bible says that there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is destruction or death. And so we're basically, many of us, boldly going nowhere. We mean well in our intentions of going nowhere, of going to death and going to the grave. And so because these people, here's what you have to understand about leftists, be they black, white, or whatever the case may be. Many of these people start from the presumption that there is no God. If there is a God, they believe that it's not the God of the Bible. They don't believe anything that the Bible says about God. When the Bible gives an account of how the world was created, they don't believe it. Rather, they believe what we've all been taught in our public schooling, which is that the earth is billions of years old and we evolved from a fish in the sea, which ultimately became man, which ultimately became Homo sapien. So a lot of the premises with which they start, or from which they start, are predicated not from a biblical worldview, but from a kind of postmodern or kind of pseudo-scientific worldview. And as such, because they don't believe what the Bible says about God, they naturally don't believe in what the Bible says about eternity or heaven. And so they believe it's incumbent upon them to build their own heaven on earth. And what they've been told in this postmodern framework is that the heaven on earth that we need to build is one that needs to be free of racism, is one that needs to be have gender equality, is one that needs to have no disparities, no wealth gaps. Everyone should receive the same. It should be socialistic in origin. Is one where there's no climate injustice, where there's no economic injustice, this, that, and the third. This is the heaven that they envision building, because they genuinely believe that by building this utopia, by building this heaven on earth, this man-made heaven, this man-made Tower of Babel, that blacks will genuinely be considered equal and they won't have to suffer the burden of living in a quote unquote white society. And so they mean well in this kind of building of this Tower of Babel. But what the Bible tells us is that their doing is in vain and that the end of their ways is death. And so we mustn't get caught up in the fact that how dare you believe something different than what I believe politically. We mustn't believe that. We mustn't jump to the lie that they don't mean well. We shouldn't say no to the question of whether they mean well, because they do. The problem is that they do. But our task as believers is to, in a sense, reorient. Well, we won't do that because we're not the Holy Spirit, but to have a hand in reorienting what it is they believe. And by, in a sense, communicating the message of the gospel, that they might then loosen themselves from this kind of wrong way of thinking and to reorient their way of thinking to the Bible. They must be born again. They must be a new creature, or new creations, new creatures, where they believe the things that the Bible says about who they are, what the world is, the direction the world is headed, and they could use that kind of creative spirit that God has put within all of us to use their passion and their vigor for something actually good, as opposed to something that's destructive. That's my answer to the question of whether they mean well or not. Blanche, I'll give you the floor.
I would say no, because we assume because someone is attempting a good deed that their intentions are actually good, when in fact it could be the total opposite. Many people hide behind philanthropy. And again, somebody said it about them being, most of them being atheists, most of them being narcissistic. When I listen to the average white liberal talk, one thing I don't hear is anything that's godly. I hear everything that's either selfish, either something that doesn't involve any wisdom, doesn't involve any understanding. Just the things they say are insane. And then The difference is when you're talking to them and you get a breakthrough, when you get to a revelation, they're still not going to change. I think Keisha mentions all the time how this stuff is a cult. And again, we can say the intent seemed good, but actually God judges the heart, because God knows that a man might do something that seems good, but what does the man's heart say? And to me, a lot of their hearts aren't good. When you listen to these people, when they get upset, if you see the videos of when they get upset, and they'll show you how they really feel, most of them just aren't good people. I'm sorry. And so I don't believe, once being on that side and being on this side, I don't believe that their intentions are good. Because think about it. How does the white liberal exist if everything is equal? How does the white liberal still be a white liberal if there's no systemic oppression, if there's nothing holding anybody back, if this world is a utopia? Where is the white liberal? What are they now? They won't exist anymore. And so to me, the white liberals' existence is the fact that they have someone that needs to be helped. They call it the white savior complex. Good intentions, no. Now, do they believe? This is what I do believe they believe. Do they believe they know best? I do, yes. Do they believe that Black people don't know or people don't know? Yes. I do believe they believe that people need them to have a functioning life. That's what I do believe. But pure good intentions, no.
Okay. Let's go with Keisha.
So I think that it depends. I think just like in a cult, typically the leader knows exactly what they're doing. And the people who follow the leader typically have been brainwashed and have been bamboozled into a belief, truly believing that what they're doing is right, like really not knowing that they have that they've gone down a broad path. And so I think it really does depend. I think sometimes you have people that their intentions are good. Their intent is good. Their intent is not to do, is to do, to help people, to do what's best. I think the reason why, like the George Floyd thing, a part of it was when people saw, it's just like in the 60s, when they actually saw these things happening on camera, like with the water hoses and all that thing, it made people, it's the same playbook. The devil don't have no new tricks, same old thing. It affected people, the humanity in you. That's a human being, his fate. Oh my God, maybe I haven't been paying attention. Oh my God, look at what the police are doing to this Black guy. You know what I mean? And so I think, the intent of the people who are pushing this out in the media and, the leaders behind the scenes, no, I don't think their intent is good. And I think they know exactly what they're doing. But the people that saw it and the people that are just kind of sheeply led into this, I think a lot of them are deceived. They're deceived. But their intent is good. Some of them. I don't know. I don't like to put all of anything into one bucket. I struggle to do. I don't think anything is typically, we can absolute things like that. So I think it depends, and we can. I think we should take these things on a case by case basis when we can. I know that's kind of hard to do because we talk about these topics on a broad level, but when we can. You have to judge, you have to try the spirit by the spirit. You can't just lump everybody into one bucket. I think that's unfair. And so, I think it's sometimes.
Yeah, I was waiting on Shannon to call me out. Let me just woosah for a second and refocus. I agree with what Keisha said and much of what Blanche said as well. I think the issue or the question is a bit more complicated than maybe it may seem at a glance. It is difficult to measure someone's intent, if possible. Even it may not even be possible. It's sort of like when it comes to liberals and the left in general. One of the things that sort of fuels their whole social justice crusade is that they believe that the moral and just thing is to reward one for their merit as opposed to their productivity. And the great Thomas Sowell says that we reward productivity over merit for the very valid reason that we know how to do it. We reward productivity over merit for the very valid reason that we know how to do it. The question should be, and of course this is directed towards liberals. And one of the things that they don't seem to understand is that there's a difference between what is ideal versus say what can be done, or what can we as human beings actually achieve. And we simply settle in many instances, no matter what it is we're talking about, whether we're talking about form of government or types of institutions and how those institutions are run. We simply settle for the lesser of, I guess, more costly evils, if you will, to sort of mitigate the costs of certain decisions that we make, right? And so it's a bit difficult. I will say that, just generally speaking, and I say all that to say that, of course, that these people should be stopped. They should be undermined and beaten back, if at all possible, right? I mean, within reason, right? I'm not advocating we go out and start whacking people over the head, or like my boy Blanche say, go out there, get your head knocked off. I'm not advocating for things like that, but these people should be stopped because what they produce is folly. It's farce. It leads us into error. But if you were ever to read the autobiographies and memoirs of those who were once in the movement, who have come out of the movement, men like David Horowitz, or if you read Alger Hiss's autobiography, Witness, or when you read Bella Dodd's autobiography, Children of Darkness, and just listen to those who were not just, liberals, not just on the left, but in the case of someone like an Alger Hiss, I mean, he was an outright member of the Soviet underground. I mean, he, of course, the famous Alger Hiss trial, Alger Hiss being a high-ranking member of our State Department under FDR. I mean, he wasn't just some nobody. Other men such as Moses Childs and others, and they will tell you why they joined the communist movement. And I take those individuals, I take their words to heart. Alger Hiss said something. Quote of his, he said that when it comes to the movement, communism, for example, he says that working people are moved by the crisis, but intellectuals are moved by the vision. And he said that, especially back then. I mean, now when you look at it, it's like, we see, liberals, of course, they get praised, and people parade liberals around on their shoulders for saying all the right things. But there was a time in this country where being a communist, for example, it wasn't something that you did because you wanted praise. It wasn't something that you did because you wanted financial gain or monetary reward, or you wanted, social data boys and pats on the back, because that was not awaiting you if you chose that life. That was not a life that someone who wanted to be praised and wanted social success and things of that nature, that's not the life they chose. People actually chose to live underground and to live a clandestine lifestyle, and to be just sort of in this like cult, if you will, away from the general population. A committed Bolshevik, as they called themselves, was not something that you did because you wanted praise. You did it because you actually believed in it. You made the sacrifice because you thought that you were helping the world. You thought that you were doing something good. And these people genuinely believe that. And I believe that they believe that, especially when you hear the personal life stories and testimonies of someone like an Alger Hiss. I will take his word to the bank any day over people who are on the sidelines simply opining. So it's a very, it's not an easy thing to answer, but it's worth discussing and unpacking. But I don't know if we'll ever truly know the answer. Only that person knows, and I guess ultimately only God knows. To what Blanche said.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say one quick thing though. I just want to say during these last 3 years with these this whole Peter pandemic and mandate situation, me personally saw the true side of liberals, and the stuff they were doing wasn't virtuous. It wasn't good faith. It wasn't not. It was evil. It was wicked. But when they had leverage, they acted a complete and utter fool, and I saw it firsthand. So to me, that would have been an opportune time in the moment of crisis for the world for them to show who they really were, and they did. And I saw them do the most disgusting and egregious things, knowing they had the leverage to do so. They didn't use that leverage to do anything good and honorable. They used that leverage to be despicable and tyrannical. And so to me, that was an opportunity for them to prove even me wrong in that sense, but they didn't. I watched them go overboard.
Hey, Blanche, the thing is, and the issue is that, and you're right. I agree with you, because we pretty much we are aligned in terms of like our visions, and therein lies the problem, right? Because depending upon the premise from which you start, you're going to end up in a totally different place. You're using terms such as good and virtue and these sorts of things. And I know what you mean when you say those words, because I have a very similar, if not an exact, conception or understanding of those words. And so when you look at someone who is to the left of us politically, and you see how they are behaving and the tactics that they're using, especially, when, for example, look at, what is going on, for example, with Donald Trump right now, this very sort of Soviet-esque type, show me, like Lavrenti Beria said, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. To us, that's just like, this is so beyond the pale. But individuals began to talk past one another when they have totally different conceptions of what simple words and concepts mean that we oftentimes take for granted. They have a totally different conception of what virtue is. And I'm not saying that you don't understand that, but I'm simply bringing that up to say, this is where our problem actually lies. You see two totally different visions of life, and
that's a very good point, Chuck, and I wanted to kind of speak to that briefly. And by the way, folks, please get the likes up. But Blanche, you mentioned earlier, or you alluded rather earlier, to Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12, which talks about our battle not being against flesh and blood, but against spirits and principalities and high places and things of this nature. And I obviously agree, it's in the Bible. But do you think that some might be motivated, like, to the question of, do white liberals mean well? Do you think some people might be motivated to say no based upon this kind of innate or default desire that many of us have to identify and thus dehumanize a boogeyman, because we want to find and pinpoint who among our neighbors are the boogeyman, so that way we can come after them and this, that, and the third. Do you think that some people might be motivated to say, no, you don't mean well, there's nothing, whatever, for that, the whole purpose of wanting to find and identify a boogeyman, as opposed to understanding that, no, it goes deeper than that, because people are deceived, as Keisha pointed out earlier. People are misled. And I guess the reason I'm asking the question is because I feel that, to the extent, and I'm not saying that this is what you're doing, Blanche, but I feel that to the extent that we assume the worst about others or dehumanize them, then it kind of becomes a thing of writing them off, as opposed to seeing this person as a person who is made in the image of God, who may be misled, and thus kind of punting our responsibility to exemplify and communicate the gospel to this lost soul. I know I said a lot, but feel free to approach that question however you wish.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I'll say that most people that I talk to are liberal. Most people are left-leaning. I would just say this. When you talk to these people, when you get down to the bare bones of it all, what you find is really just a lack of character and lack of accountability and those kind of things. And I'm going to say this, it's not just a liberal thing. Most people are motivated by selfish reasons. It takes a real relationship with Christ to not be motivated selfishly. So it's not just a left thing, but the question was about the left. I would say that most people operate from a selfish standpoint. Now, I'm not saying they don't mean well, but at the core of what they're doing, it's going to most oftentimes be a selfish reason. That's why we have to carry our cross daily, because we have to every day challenge our own selfish wants and desires and put those behind the things that God wants. Yes, there is there's a intent to demonize people on the left, but they don't make it very difficult to do. Do I think that all people on the left are sinister? No, but I guarantee if you talk to them and if you actually get down and strip all this stuff away, you're going to find that most of the stuff people struggle with, it isn't ideology. It isn't even spirituality. It is really a character issue. It is a character issue. And to me, that's what Christ exposes. And so I'm not going to say that all liberals are anything or all conservatives are anything. I'm simply going to say, me talking to liberals, once you talk to them enough, you're going to be like, wait a minute. And then when you talk to them about this and you get to talking, they'll even agree. It's not like they'll disagree with what I'm saying. They'll agree and then go back into the same thing. So again, but I won't say that's just liberals. I'll say that's most people, because most folks want to be comfortable. I'm not going to make this a liberal and conservative thing. I think it's just a human nature thing. And that's what we got to fight against. But the question was asked me about liberals. If you ask me about conservatives, I'm going to say the same thing, because I just feel like human nature is what you got to fight against. It's not a political ideology or political party. It's your very nature as a human being, what you have to fight every day.
Those are very good and solid points. Chuck and Keisha, I'll give you all the last word on this.
Keisha, you got something?
I would just say when it comes, when it comes to the intensity in which they believe what they believe, because I mean, if you notice, as we all have, that, they have no problems going into a neighborhood, burning it down, doing some extremely radical stuff. I mean, and that's because they really believe what they're doing. Like, people don't go out and behave like this. If they didn't believe what they were doing, they wouldn't be so loud and just boisterous about what they're saying if they didn't believe it. Most people, I know there's always anomalies and things like that, but most people who would go to the extent that they do to prove their point, they really do believe that America is bad. They really do believe that America or white people are the reasons for the ills of the world. I mean, like, they really do believe this stuff, but their training, how they get to that point is very intense. There was this guy, he was kind of popular a few years back. He was giving his testimony about he used to be a devil worshiper, and then he gave his life to Christ. He's a Hispanic guy. Gosh, his name is slipping from my mind right now. But he would talk about how when he went to, keep calling it like devil church, when he went to worship the devil, he said we would have to be in there for hours, and you had to be in there for hours. He's like, then I come over, I get saved, and he's like, everybody was ready to leave church in like an hour. He was like, I just thought that was so strange. Like, where is the enthusiasm? Where is that intense, like, thirst for God? And I think it's kind of the same thing. You see these leftists, they actually do train. Like, we've seen Martin Luther King at the communist training camps. We've seen, we hear them, the BLM ladies, I'm a trained Marxist. I mean, they are well studied in this. So yes, they take it on, they walk in it, they live in it. It is their very worldview. And so, I just wanted to make that point. And the other thing too, with Blanche, talking about how, you try to have reasonable conversations with these people, and you can actually, be telling them facts. You can literally show it to them and they're like, no. And I believe a big part of that is schooling. A lot of these people have gone through the public schooling system and through the universities, and they do not have, all they know how to do is follow someone that they've already been thoroughly indoctrinated. So another narrative, another viewpoint is like, talking to a brick wall. And I blame that almost completely at the public schooling system.
But Keisha, what I was saying was, when I talk to people that are quote unquote liberals or the left, they agree with a lot with what I say. What I'm telling you is that after they agree, once they leave, they go back to the same thing. So there's a moment of clarity, a moment of sobriety that they know is because they agree, then they reject it because it's going to make their life uncomfortable. So what I'm saying is that right. if we dig into the heart, the Bible says the heart is wicked, so wicked that nobody can even know it. So we know that a person's heart off of rip is wicked. Now, how wicked, we don't know, but we don't. What God says is so wicked we don't know it. So what I'm saying is, this is not just a liberal thing. This is a human thing when we start digging into what is in a person's heart truly. So a person could be conservative to the tilt and still have the same nefarious agenda as somebody on the left or liberal. Like, to me, it's a human issue.
Yeah,
I 100% agree. I was just saying, just to make a point of clarity, I was just saying, like, when you are, because I think that part is a large part of the cult part. Like, they have been, because you can, I've witnessed this with people myself. You say something to them, they agree, and then they're right back to the same thing because it's a mindset. They have indoctrinated. They've been thoroughly brainwashed. But yes, I agree with that. Absolutely, it is a human. It's the human condition. Sin. The wickedness. Yeah. It's sin.
Chuck, you got the last word before we move on to the next clip.
I like the example that Blanche, or what he said there, just about human beings, just in general, whether it be on the left or on the right. Even though someone who is, well, we oftentimes ask the question of what does modern day conservatism in America even mean? What do modern day American conservatives even stand for? And I think that feeds into the beginning of the show when we asking questions about what we Candace Owens and that whole thing. It because I ask myself this question often. What is modern day conservatism? What does it mean? What is it actually about? It doesn't. Anyway, I'll leave that there. But so. I thought about that, what Blanche was saying, and I thought about Abraham Lincoln, and we talked about, I think may have been last week or the week before, we asked some questions about the Republican Party. And when Abraham Lincoln, of course, he's known for the Gettysburg Address, the Lincoln-Douglas debates, and his second inaugural shortly before he was assassinated. I think those are the three speeches or moments that he's most known for. But he also gave a speech. I think it was before the Illinois House of Representatives, sometime during the 1930s, and it's one of, I think, Abraham Lincoln's most. I wanted to, what was it?
You said 1930s.
1830s. Yeah, sorry about that. 1830s. And to me, in my humble opinion, I mean that is Abraham Lincoln's best, one of, if not his best speeches. And one of the things that he said in that speech is, of course, he talked about the Constitution. He talked about that we must always, and I'm going to paraphrase, I don't remember the speech word for word, But there was a point during that speech where he says that there's going to be someone who is going to come about and try to achieve or accomplish what we have already done, essentially, which is to create this new kind of system, this new kind of government. He says something to the effect that we've already treaded this, we've already gone there. But to Blanche's point, like when he talked about how men are overcome by ambition, by pride, he talked about, this is Abraham Lincoln now, he says that men will always seek to make themselves great. And in order for one to make themselves greater, then they must go beyond the bounds of that which we have created, which was meant to restrict them in the first place. And so this is how this individual is going to seek that fame and immortality, if you will, by overcoming or usurping or superseding that which we have done here. And they are going to do so. And this is what really struck me about this speech. This was in the 1830s. And this is one of the reasons why Abraham Lincoln did not have universal support from the Republican Party in 1860, because many of Republicans didn't think Abraham Lincoln was radical enough, because he was somewhat of a moderate, at least from their point of view. And in many respects, Abraham Lincoln, you can make the argument, sort of kowtowed to the more radical elements of the Republican Party during his day. But back then in the 1830s, he said that one day an ambitious man will, for his own sake, do so by enslaving free men or granting freedom to the slave. Something to that effect. Now, listen, it's key. Listen to what he says. He says that, I'm going to repeat it, a man one day may step forward for the sake of himself and his own ambition, will either make slaves of free men or do so in the name of freeing enslaved men. So what Abraham Lincoln was saying in so many words, of course, is that, and I know we get it, right? Smart audience. That is that, again, there's a certain process and a certain way we must go about doing things. And we must always be on guard for the demagogue, even if he comes in the name of a cause we support, even if it comes in the name of something that seems to be so morally objective and simple, such as the issue of slavery. We mustn't allow that person to try and circumvent and go around, right, our system of government in order to achieve a cause, a vision that that person believes is morally superior to everything else. Because the system, the country, as we say, that is governed by laws and not by the arbitrary edicts of men, that is what must remain sacrosanct, is the system and the process itself. And we mustn't become slaves to someone's ambition. And I think that was a very important speech by Abraham Lincoln. And lastly, I think that I think Chad alluded to this, is that, you know, it just boils down to this loss of God. We've lost our spiritual center. And as much as I, of course, support the free market economic system or classical liberalism, call it what you like, I think this is the pitfalls of classical liberalism, or the pitfalls of capitalism, if you will, and how liberalism kind of wedded itself to this concept of scientific progression. Because I think inherently and innately, of course, the spirit does seek some sense of order. It wants to create something that it can surrender itself to for the greater good and for a purpose. Because I think all human beings intrinsically seek out purpose. And this whole kind of free market, laissez-faire sort of a thing, I think it sort of betrays that need for sacrifice and surrender. And I think that a lot of the earlier peoples in the early 20th century that globbed on to causes like communism and fascism and these other systems, I believe that they were simply seeking some form of self-perfection or self-mastery without God. And so when you take this whole issue of free will and choice and you combine it with this need for self-mastery, or what the Bible, I guess, would consider sanctification, for example, then you're talking about, I guess, a man at his best. But what classical liberalism has done is stripped away this need for self-perfection and sacrifice. And what these secular ideologies have done have completely stripped away the gift of freedom or free will. And so that's why you see tyranny over here, which leads to bad things. And when you see this kind of wild-eyed libertarian do as thou wilt here in the classical liberal tradition, is when you also end up with bad things. And so they're both apart from one another in this way, to their detriment of each sort of side, if that makes sense.
That's that's Teach 'em Chuck, everyone. Spoken like a true book introduction. You all stand by for Jane Elliott.
My students become what I told them they were. I watched little wonderful brown-eyed white people become vicious, ugly, nasty, discriminating, domineering people in the space of 15 minutes. I watched brilliant little blue-eyed white Christian children become timid and frightened and angry and unable to learn in the space of 15 minutes. If you do that with a whole group of people for a lifetime, you change them psychologically. If you do that for a lifetime, what do you suppose that does to them? You find out that there are people of color who refuse to live down to our expectations of them. I am now watching, at the national level, that exercise that I did based on eye color being reenacted in the government of the United States of America. I've done this with people of all ages for the last 50 years. Now think about that. Next year it will be the 50th anniversary of the killing of Martin Luther King Jr. and the beginning of the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise. When are we going to learn? When are we going to put a stop to this? If I were black, they'd have killed me a long time ago.
Oh my God.
And if I were black and saying the things I say, I wouldn't be alive.
What
we
about
live in the
Angela
land
Davis?
of the free and the home of the brave.
Right.
White people are the free, and people of color have to be brave.
Cal.
I want this situation to change. I want it to be such that no black person has to have courage to get up in the morning, any more than I, as a white person, have to have courage to get up in the morning.
So what strikes me about this panel is the universality with which these white liberals speak. You'll notice that the very last thing she said is, I just want black people to get up in the morning without having to muster up the courage to get out of bed in the morning, just like I don't have to muster up the courage to get out of bed every morning. She's assuming that black folks have to muster up the courage to get up out of bed in the morning to then go out into this white racist world where we're being judged and we're being followed and the police are hunting us down and this, that, and the third. So she's speaking with this kind of universality of black struggle. And this is one of the things that irritates me about not only white liberalism rhetoric, but also black victimhood rhetoric, where you kind of universalize this whole concept of the black struggle, where I've been a black man for all of 34 years of my life, and I don't know what the hell these people are talking about. I don't have to muster up the courage to get out of bed in the morning.
What?
I'm not familiar with this kind of systemic oppression that holds me back, because everything that I've attempted at in life, I've succeeded in. Everything I've attempted, I've succeeded in. Not the first time, obviously, but each time I failed, it was due to some kind of deficiency on my part that had nothing to do with the color of my skin. And so again, I'm willing to have a conversation with a white liberal, or a black victim for that matter. My issue is how they universalize this whole concept of black struggle. And to Blanche's point, they're not being genuine. They're being disingenuous, in fact, when they do that. Blanche, I'll give you the first stab at this.
Now, we can say that she really believes what she's saying all the way up until that last statement where she says, if I was black. I would have been shot, as if black folks don't talk way crazier than Jane Elliott. What she's saying is not even radical. It's not over the top. It's not even far left. She's just basically saying that America's racist systemically and white people are racist. When she said, if I was black, I'm like, do you know how many black people talk crazier than you? Like literally every show, there's a movie out right now where they say that white people are the most dangerous species on the planet. It's in a movie. So again, Jane Elliott, and she's also against, for the black folks listening, she's against reparations. I won't get into that, but yeah, she's capped, man. And I just think that, like Chad said, to me it's disgusting, and I blame black folks for this. A white person telling you how your life has been for your whole life, and you agree with them and go with it, you're stupid. You're just dumb. Like it makes no sense. She's telling you you've experienced this, and you don't even say no, I haven't. You just going, okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, victimhood is a hell of a drug.
Yeah. Go ahead, Keisha.
Yeah, so I would just say her experiment is cap. Like you can't take these isolated groups. So the way she does, that's cute. It seems like that would be able to prove the point, but it doesn't, because people don't live their lives that way. You can't take broad society and how people normally go about their everyday and what they typically do, the decisions that they make, try to create what we call like a microcosm of that in a room and just divvy people up like that. Like that's not the same thing. It's not even close. Not even. Something better would be like those social experiments where people are just going about their day and watching how people interact with. That would be a more accurate experiment. But just like putting people in a room and then segregating them where they can actually see different things happening, it's just not equivalent. And I'm surprised that no real scholar has been like, this is not a real experiment. You do know that, right? Like to try to get to what you're saying, like that's not real. So she's foolish. And to Blanche's point, like when somebody is telling you that you can't get to you can't vote because you don't know how to get an ID, or you can't because you're black. You're black and you don't know how to go get an ID. Joe Biden said that because you're black, you don't know how to get on the computer. There's all of these crazy narratives that go around. And like Blanche said, nobody ever stopped and say, well, wait a minute. I can. And the fact that you think that I can't is more insulting than any system that you're claiming that you're trying to fix. Actually, you in front of me telling me this is more insulting. But like Blanche said, they just say, you know what? You're right. And like my opening phrase is victimhood is a hell of a drug.
One hell of a drug. Go ahead, Chuck.
I mean, nothing much more to add there. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I mean, Jane Elliott and people like her, when I hear them say these sorts of things, I always say to myself, Liz, would you go just find, I mean, go and find God, right? Find the real God. Just stop this. Because I mean, that's what this is, right? It's just this exercise. And this is why, her and people who think like her, people who believe the things that she says, when it comes to certain, social issues and disparities and these things, it's always because, see, we have determined that to hate someone on the basis of their appearance. This is something that when we're talking about skin color in particular, right? We discriminate for a multitude of reasons based upon, appearance. I like the old story that the late Walter Williams would tell when he said that, I discriminated. I discriminated when I picked my wife, and I think that my wife is happy about that, because I chose her as opposed to someone else. And so that other individual, I guess they they didn't win the prize, so to speak. So we all kind of discriminate for various reasons, but when it comes to skin color, when you're talking about access to the society's provisions, and now we have an issue, right? And so for her to blame it on racism or systemic oppression is it's like edifying to the soul, right? Because it provides them with a moral narrative. And oftentimes when you're talking about disparities, you're not talking about discrimination. You're talking about disparities in talents. You're talking about disparities in behavior. You're talking about disparities in cultural trends and attitudes and so on and so forth. And it becomes difficult to blame someone in those instances. Thus, the soul is not edified. It doesn't sort of get what it needs in order to feel as though it is being I guess sort of rehabilitated, if you will, or reconciled back to something that is, I guess, good or decent in a perfect kind of way that sort of transcends man's limitations, if you will, and not just a fancy way of saying, I guess, God in some way. This is what these people think. It's this attitude or this hatred in the sense that they have for nature's God, because many of these injustices that they talk about, there isn't really anyone to blame for them necessarily. And hence the whole concept that Friedrich Hayek talks about when he talks about cosmic justice. These people just simply need to find God and stop playing these little silly games with people's lives, as though every time someone fails at something, or not even so much when someone fails at something, Chad. It doesn't have to be that. It could be a situation where someone attempts to impose what they think someone ought to have on someone else and meddle in their lives in such a way that makes that individual worse and the society worse off as a whole. And so these people just need to find God and then stop playing around with people's lives. Like Blanche said, in order for them to feel good about themselves, somebody has to suffer.
Right.
It's this codependence, this weird, destructive, codependent relationship that the victims and the self-appointed moral leaders have. It's strange.
Right.
And hold up, and can we agree? She's been doing this for 50 years, and she hasn't gotten any new revelations. 50 years, like you haven't experienced anything that makes you say, you know what? Maybe it's not all of what I'm saying it is. Maybe it's a bit nuanced. It's not just people hate black skin, but people hate brown eyes.
She's too in it now. She's got to get that bag. She got to get the bag now. It's like she's in too deep. Good. And first of all, wait a minute. I just looked up.
She's a liar, and the truth is not in her. Go ahead, Keisha.
Hello, Blanche. What are you doing?
What?
What is this?
Blanche is out here hustling.
I looked up in the chat and I'm like, Blanche talking about, I'm trying to scroll back. What did I miss? What?
I'm telling y'all, Blanche is a whole pimp over here.
Did you say Blanche trying to throw it back? What'd you say?
Clean it up, Chad.
Scroll back up and see what I missed. Blanche is offering me up.
All I said was, y'all want to go live with Keisha because they putting their bid in. If y'all want to go live with Keisha, it's $100 an hour.
Got to pay.
I'm surprised Blanche doesn't have a perm.
Yeah, these white liberals are pimping. They pimping for real.
They pimping.
And they getting a big fat check. Y'all see how much Robin DiAngelo makes? She makes like what, 35-40 grand an hour for her talks.
An hour?
Yeah.
For 1 hour a talk.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta raise the price, y'all. Sorry, it's $500. $500 to talk to Keisha live for an hour.
And like you said, Chad, she said, you mentioned Angela Davis. She's talking about if she was black, she'd be dead for stop it, man. Sorry, nobody killing these people were even during the time when racism, we were told, were at its heights in the United States in the 1950s and 60s, the left-wing press herald, they championed, they gushed and glowed all over these people. You had, you know, educators and professors, and you had publishing houses were beating down their doors to publish their books. So don't miss me with that. In the case of Afeni Shakur, for example, Tupac Shakur's mother, when she was acquitted for her involvement with the whole New York 21 fiasco. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, when they were acquitted, and mind you, they funds were raised for their defense by a lot of Hollywood elites like Jane Fonda and others raised funds to fight to fund the legal defense of the New York 21. And when they were acquitted, Afeni Shakur was making her rounds throughout the Ivy League lecture circuit. These people were invited to speak at Yale and Harvard and Princeton and so on and so forth. I mean, so this was going on back then, so stop it.
Yeah, this whole concept, I mean, to your point, Chuck, that Jane Elliott says, yeah, if I were black, they would have killed me get over yourself, for one. I mean, for peeps' sake, Alice Sharpton just came out with a book or documentary or something called Loudmouth, right? Where he's basically placing himself as this kind of like hero or martyr who's fighting for the cause of black folks and who's willing to stick his neck out. And yeah, the white conservatives and evangelicals, they call me a loudmouth, but I'm going to still fight. It's like, the fact is, for all these quote unquote loudmouths who call themselves that, the fact that you're not dead or you're not strung up somewhere shows me that this racism that you says exists isn't there. There's no there.
The girl recently, sorry, Chad. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. That was my point. Go ahead.
Who was that girl who recently got off? The black girl. Was that the one where she faked her kidnapping, or did
she kidnapped herself?
Black folks are always faking their kidnappings.
Not fake her kidnapping, but fake. Was it she faked the kidnapping of her kid? And
she said like a white.
Man, they left. Listen, you knew it was the best when they left that wig on the ground. I said,
y'all talking about the lady who faked her own kidnapping?
Yeah, they left a wig on the ground.
Yeah, which one was it? Did she fake her own kidnapping or fake the kidnapping of her daughter?
No, it was her. It was her.
Okay.
But did y'all see them? This was funny to me.
Didn't she say that there was like a white baby or something that she was following or something? Or am I thinking of a different story?
She saw a baby on the side of the road and put over and tried to help the baby, and then somebody jumped out of the car and snatched her, but left her wig though.
Man, did y'all see the meme? Did y'all see the memes people were making, like movie posters with the meme with her on it, and then movie poster, and the title of the movie was Tooken. Not taken. Did y'all see them? I literally laughed out loud when I seen that. Like the movie Taken, but it was called Tooken.
Yeah, Carly Russell. Yeah, Carly Russell.
I know I'm not. I mess up. I make mistakes all the time. I make a little slip of the tongues and little gaffes as far as grammar and all of that stuff. We're not perfect, but one thing I hate is people who use the word "tooken." When I hear people, I just like, ugh, or people who use the term or who use the word "hisself." It's like it's himself. Hisself is not a word.
I'm a stickler about that too. One of my biggest pet peeves is if I'm scrolling through, IG and a video is interesting, and I go into the comment section, and I see grown adults who by their profile picture look all of 40 or 50 years old. And they say, man, I would have, and they literally spell WOULD space OF. Would have.
Instead of would have. The contraction, it's called a contraction.
Hold on, wait a minute.
I can't get past the would of. They could write a whole paragraph. I'm going to skip right past that comment because you already lost me with would of.
Would of.
Instead of would have,
instead of would have, would of.
Right, would of, yeah.
Yeah.
But these are grown adults.
Like, yeah, if you're trying to argue, I'm gonna need your grammar to be on point. Like, if you want to go toe to toe,
right.
You get her you're yours and you ours and there and there and theirs. It better be right. It better be right.
No, there was this professor. He says he was he says he's a professor. I don't know, but he was saying something, trying to go in on me, and was just had all kinds of grammatical errors, and I called him out on it. And he said, "You must not know what shorthand is." So he tried to like justify the fact that he was spelling things wrong and had all kinds of grammatical errors. I'm like, okay, it's shorthand. Well, yeah, we'll just go with that.
You writing a prescription? What you mean shorthand? Huh?
You all stand by for this.
This is silly. Like, these people want to be educated so bad, just like the Jane Elliots. Like, you want to be like, I did this experiment and look at what I've been doing for 50 years. And it's like, but when you really think about it, it's not a legit experiment. Like, you want to be so smart,
Right.
like you want to have done something so brilliant, and like you have discovered why the blacks are beneath, you know. And it's like, no, you haven't. And that
Speaking
is
of which,
not,
y'all stand by for this next clip.
Cousins, your mother, your father, your racist grandfather, who's still running things, still running police departments, still running the FBI, still running the international banking businesses, still running the schools, still choosing the people and the places and the institutions and furthering the institutions that oppress us. It's real simple.
Because it's most likely that people will be willing to receive that message from you than they are from people of color.
A lot of the ideas that we need to be pushed through starts with white families as a whole having an understanding of the systematic issues that we face, and then doing the work within your own communities, within those white spaces, to dismantle all these perceptions of what it means to be black in America.
You know what's happening. You see what's happening. When you see us getting gunned down, say something about it. Let other people know why it's wrong. Don't just let us be the only ones fighting for our lives, because we're all human.
What I need y'all to understand is this is not about you. Sit down, shut up, and listen to the people in need.
So real quick before y'all go in on these poor blacks, what strikes me most about that whole asinine nonsense is when she says, one of the black lesbian ladies, she says that we need y'all to say something when y'all see us getting gunned down. And I find that very interesting. And the reason I find that interesting is because why is it that you want so badly for white folks to speak up when they see police responses or police reactions, when you're not willing to call out the very behavior in black culture that necessitates a police response to begin with? If you're not willing to call out the deficiencies of black culture, and in fact, you want to talk down on someone like a Candace Owens or a Charleston White when they do talk about the deficiencies of black culture. So you silence those voices, and you yourself aren't willing to call out the gang banging, the thugging, the illiteracy, the disinterest in assimilating and participating in the free market system. You're not willing to call out any of the deficiencies in black culture that are self-inflicted. You're not willing to call out any of that. Yet and still, to the extent that gang banging and thugging necessitates a police reaction, then and only then do you call white people to call out that police response. It's hypocritical to the nth degree. And anyway, I could go on, but there's three other people on the panel. What do y'all think? Let's start with Chuck.
I second everything that you just said. The first lady with the hat on, I thought she was that female rapper, Remy Martin, or Remy Ma, which she goes by now. When she first came out, like 20-some years ago, she went by the rap name Remy Martin. But I almost thought that was her for a second. I was like, what the heck? Anyway, yeah, Chad is 100% correct. Of course, don't have really much to add there. It's just these people, what they would say is that, the individuals who are getting, gunned down or arrested and what have you, these people too, of course, are victims of the very same structure and what have you, that they want white people to call out, because we know white people rule the world, right? Just like so many people think Jews rule the world. And it's always some kind of boogeyman. It's always something. And so if you can point the finger at some kind of abstraction like society or the structure, well then there you have it. And nothing can really be done about that, because you're not talking about real flesh and blood human beings living in a real world. You're dealing with projections and delusions that come from your own psyche, that come from your own imagination. And so the reason why you have so many issues that may call for involvement on behalf of law enforcement and so on is because these individuals would otherwise not have to do those things if the quote unquote society that they run was just in a way that would allow these people to be their true selves, right? The whole myth of the noble savage, right? Which would allow them to be these more morally upright and virtuous human beings that the society won't allow them to be, because the society is unjust. This is what they would say. And so they still kind of get you in that trick bag. And so no matter what, you're dealing with idiots. So you can do.
Go ahead, Keisha.
I just want to say I wish I would make myself beneath someone simply because they are white. I would not denigrate myself, to the point of, oh, your great granddaddy, is the reason why my life is terrible today. Like, that is just so, like, I would not give anybody that much power. You cannot have that kind of power in my life. I'm so sorry. Like, when I hear people talk like that, that lets me know exactly who I'm dealing with. Like, and I don't know about you ladies, but I could never even date a guy who thought that a nameless, faceless white guy had his foot on his neck and just, you're not fit to lead, sir. You are not fit to lead. And I mean, it's infuriating to me when I hear Black people talk like that. Like, there is just some, this all powerful nameless white person that just won't allow them to be great. I mean, but we'll claim Christianity. Say, I'm a Christian. Oh yes, I believe. But this nameless, faceless white God is way more powerful than Jesus, in their opinion, because they are not free. They are not set free at all. My other point was just like the Black folks, they don't complain, or they don't try to do anything about their communities that are being shot up and robbed up and all the crime and stuff, but get mad when somebody like Candace, was bringing these points to light. People like what we do here, bringing these points to light, and they don't want to hear it. So you only want to be told that you're nothing and that you can't be anything, until some white person gives you the nod to go ahead and do it. And that is just like, you are not, it's ridiculous. I don't have any respect for people like that. I do not have any respect for people like that. So
go ahead, Blanche.
And I think a lot of Black liberals are, freaks, because to me, it's kind of a fetish to have a white person in your presence, and they got to just sit down and be quiet and listen to you. Like, to me, a lot of this stuff is just them getting their rocks off on white people, and white liberals being dumb enough to sit there and be berated and scolded over some nonsense. I wouldn't do it. Somebody asked, earlier, somebody was asking, are you white? Are you proud to be white? And I was like, yes, I am proud to be white. I'm white, I'm proud, and I'm racist. And that's my stance. But a lot of these Black liberals, I feel like they're getting their rocks off. I feel like, telling white people to be quiet and shut up and listen to me, do what I say do. To me, it's all some kind of sick social fetish thing they have, where they just want to be in charge of white people. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Chuck?
No, I said I agree with that. I agree. Yeah. Sick, twisted, Blanche. I oftentimes, I've said before that, man, I couldn't be a white man. I could just, for a day, You know, because you talk, man, I'm not putting up with it. You ain't. I wish somebody would come at me trying to say I'm a cisgendered male, privileged, but man, I'm gonna hit the roof. It's gonna go down. It's gonna go down. At some point, I miss the good old days, and just when men were men in general, but I especially miss the good old days when white men were men. Bring old white racist white men. Bring them kind of men back.
Yeah, where's Bull Connor when you need him?
Yeah, where's Bull Connor? What them kind of men? Bring them old racist white man. Bring him back. I'd rather deal with him than deal with what I got now. You get those type of men, those white. Anytime I go to I don't know how it is in you all states where you all from, but every time I go somewhere, I know we got all type of jokes about baristas because that seems to be the only job that a lot of these debt-addled college graduates can get. But every time I go through a drive-through or I go to a coffee shop or whatever, I'm always greeted by somebody with colored hair, with painted fingernails, nose piercings, just weirdos. And I'm saying to myself, every drive through I hit, I mean, I'm seeing men that's just scrawny, narrow shoulders, these pencil necks, narrow shoulders, chest sunk in, gangly, just look like they ain't never did a push-up. And I'm like, man, what is going on? Like, I mean, can you imagine, if we Are these the men that are going to answer the call? Are they going to answer the call? No, man.
Are they going to answer it? All right.
bring I don't know.
I'm ready, Daddy.
Right.
I'm ready, Daddy.
I don't mean what Blanche mean.
I'm ready, Daddy. Come on up,
man. But all jokes aside, bring old Jim Bob, bring Billy Bob, bring them diabetes back, man. God,
we're gonna circle back to that point, Chuck, because it's a very good one, and I have a video for that. Before we do, let's take a quick break. Keisha, do you mind reading all the latest supers that came in, starting with Will at 7:23 p.m.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I refreshed, so maybe. I only see, wait a minute.
She didn't do her homework. Goodness.
Okay, no. Oh, 8:23. 8:23. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm Central Time. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay. So we have, oh, really? Starting
with Will.
Oh, sorry. I'll read this one first. Oh, really? Try being conservative and see how they turn on you. Thank you. Oh, really? Yes, they definitely do. Will, $10. Here's some reparations from Team Whitey. Love y'all. Thank you, Will. We love you back. Let's see. Abba's Child, Proverbs 26-7, the King James Version. Most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find? The just man walketh in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. So I take that to mean that you will be, you can see the fruit from a righteous man because his children will be blessed and he will be blessed.
Amen.
Yes. Thank you for that, Abba's Child. Mr. Dino, some leftists are truly addicted to existentialism, which makes it hard to judge true intent. Very good point. Thank you, Mr. Dino. Let's see. Starved Baby, 2 Timothy 4:2. Chat tonight is lit. Thank you. 2 Timothy 4:2. I don't know what that says. Thank you, Starved Baby. Idris Singleton, another great discussion. I'm not going to lie, growing up in Ann Arbor, Chuck knows, I'm a little prejudiced towards them. Even though I voted in the poll, it is based on the individual. Majority of white libs are a problem. They definitely are a problem. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Ann Arbor is something else.
He went to Pioneer High School.
That's just, Ann Arbor, that is University of Michigan's main campus. And ironically, I think they have a smaller offshoot campus around Flint, but they also have one in Dearborn, of all places. So you got Dearborn, and then you also have Ann Arbor. And so when you go, it's just like any other college town. You go to Ann Arbor, you got the Ann Arbor U of M hospital, the college campus, and then all around. I mean, you know, you got wealth, abundance, you got big, you know, homes worth in the high six figures and the millions. You see pride flags, you see all kinds of stuff. Of course, that's all hospital personnel, university personnel, faculties, professors. Yeah, it's just big one liberal bastion, but that's because of the university. Yeah.
Yeah. GG Ryder, thank you so much. It says, I think he was speaking to someone at Faith Refine. Oh gosh, these names, geez. Okay, Refine Tinubu is current president of Nigeria. Ifunroye Tinubu was
Come on, Keisha. Happen to your inner African.
Just say
this is
African.
what I get.
Just say African.
Yo, inner African.
Just say African English. Go ahead. Just
This is what I get talking about people who can't type, who can't spell. I can't read apparently. Tinubu was a big slave trader. Queen plots to kill Brit officer who headed abolition. Ifunro Tinubu has 2 statues to honor her.
In Nigeria, yeah.
Oh, in Nigeria. Okay. Wow. Gigi, right? You always come with some great info. Thank you for that. Let's see. Where am I? Shout out to Angel. Hey, shout out to Angel Wing. Shout out to all my fellow wonderful little brown-eyed people. Gigi Ryder again says Robin DiAngelo pays Black assistants 10% of her take. That's her reparations.
Yeah, giving back.
Let's see, a super sticker from MCK Amara, $10. Thank you so much. A member of the Cutting Through the Culture family, Rick Hampstein, $10. Great show as always. God loves you all. Thank you so much. Another family member, Miss Ree J07. Thank you, Cutting Through the Culture panel for tonight's show. Very informative per usual. Thank you so much. All right, and that's all we have for now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Stand by for the next clip.
A handhold. I'm not gonna listen to white splaining. I'm not gonna do that. So when people are like, or I get COVID a lot, I'm afraid of COVID. Fool, I might have lupus, and I've been out there for 5 months. I throw up on the way to actions and then march for hours. I don't want to hear about COVID. That makes me so angry. And also, every action I've been to, that's where I feel the safest. Everybody has a mask. Everybody has hand sanitizer. People are so careful at protests. No excuse. If you are white and you have not been in the street at least 5 to 10 times in the last 5 months, you need to ask yourself what side of history you want to be on. Pick a side. You are with or without. That's it. With us or against us.
Is that a man?
Is that real?
Is that a man?
Is that a parody?
I feel like it's
that's real. That's real.
No, that's real. That's real.
That's a hip white girl.
I think it's a man.
She sounded like she was out of breath.
I mean, yeah, that thick. I was about to cuss. That thick mask she got on. You can't breathe. She must be feeling like.
Nurture says I'm communist like a mask with a fist on it. Like that's like
right.
You got the mask and the fist. Goodness.
No, but she said if you're not going to 8, if you're not going to at least what? Because you said 8.
She said
protests 5 protests in 5 months. 8 protests in 5 months. So that's 10. About 10 or 12 protests a year. If you're not doing that, then you're on the wrong side of history, says she. And
I think it's a man.
I mean, she notice how at the end she says, if you're not with us, you're against us. You're on the wrong side of history. This, folks, is a sophisticated call to communism. It just is. And of course, you're not going to get through an episode of Cutting Through the Culture without the word communism being brought up at least once. But this is what this is. And of course, there's other clips I could have played to demonstrate that. But when you see all these white folks saying, look, we need to make the system fairer for Black folks. We need to change this. We need to, you heard the word dismantle in the montage. We need to dismantle the system. We need to overthrow and overhaul the system. again, these are just in some sense, in some cases, academic or sophisticated rhetoric or language, or I should say more slogan-esque or propagandistic language, to say one thing, which is we need communism in order to make everything fairer for everybody. That's ultimately what it is they're saying. What say you all? Let's start with Chuck.
The last part you said there, just about just needing how we need communism. I'm pretty sure you all saw that clip that went viral of the Puerto Rican. Oh no, he's not Puerto Rican. My apologies. Cuban rapper Pitbull. When he talked about his family history and how they escaped communism. And, he was talking about how seeing what was going on as far as like the mask mandates and all the restrictions and things of that nature, he said that it reminded him of what his family escaped. It reminded him of what they dealt with under Fidel Castro. And he said, when you get to America, when you actually live in freedom and you become familiar with it, you learn it, you appreciate it. He didn't say it quite that way. For those of you who saw the clip, he was a little more colorful with his language, but he said, man, I appreciate freedom. What's going on with this pandemic stuff, reminded him of communist Cuba, what the United States government was doing. And when I see her and I see the mask, it just speaks to the whole secular point of view and framework that they have. This irrational fear of a virus, as if the virus was so, maybe this doesn't have anything to do with their whole white liberal savior complex, but I think it somewhat does, just to kind of unpack the psyche of these people. If the virus is everything that they wanted us to believe that it was, then quite frankly, there was no hope anyway for at least a temporal survival. And therein lies the point, is that I think somewhere in these people's minds, I don't know if they are just so attached to this world that they just refuse to. It's almost like, well, without this, beyond this, and who am I and what am I? Where do we sort of go from here? You can't be afraid of death so much so to such an irrational level, quite frankly, that you cease living. She's the type of person that would say something like, follow the science and this and that. Of course, when you're talking about, science and data, statistics, data can be factual, but facts and data isn't always evidence. There's a difference, because you have to be able to draw a logistical connection to whatever point that you're trying to make. Facts and data isn't always evidence. That is, that's just assuming also that your facts are in fact facts, and sometimes they aren't. But people don't live by science. People live by wisdom. And life, or quality of life, as I like to say, is not a scientific question. It is a philosophical one. And so when you have God in your corner, and when you adhere to it, you refuse to live your life in this kind of way. And so I think it just speaks to the overall godliness of the liberal mind, that they are so afraid of their own shadows because they don't have God in their corner. They don't see life in that way, because when you have that, when you acknowledge God and when you believe in God, I believe that once from there, you also accept the fact that there are certain eternal truths that are worth fighting for and that are worth dying for. And you have to be willing to do so. Just the same way in which there are some evils that you have to fight, and there are some eternal truths that you must be willing to lay down your life in service of. Or else, you give way to tyrants. And I think that's pretty much what the mask symbolizes. This attachment to the flesh, to the world, as Blanche would like to say. These people want the world; they don't want to give it up. So whatever it takes to try and keep themselves from dying, as if you live a good, decent life, and you within that time frame, if you've been born again, as evangelicals like to say, then what's wrong with living right, living just, doing what is expected of you, and going off and meeting your maker and spending eternity with him. I don't really understand what everyone was so afraid of. The mask wasn't going to save you. If the virus is what the virus was supposed to be, the mask wasn't going to save you anyway. So spend time praying and getting close to God, and getting yourself right so you can meet him on that day. That's all I got to say about that, man.
The Bible says in Ecclesiastes that it's better to think about death than to think about having a good time.
Exactly.
What say you, Blanche?
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree with Chuck. He mentioned about the virus, and it's almost like the rhetoric behind the virus is that the virus was really an extension of white supremacy, because they said that the virus was attacking Black people more than anybody else. People of color were dying more. So they almost made the virus operate and act like it had a mind of its own, like it was sinister and intentionally trying to go after people of color. So they kind of made the virus like white supremacy. And so the approach to it was a virtuous one. It was a, wear your mask for your friend, protect your neighbor, do all these things. At the end of the day, it was great. It was great propaganda. That attachment to that mask. And to me, a lot of these people, especially white liberals, they want to feel like they are also oppressed. And because they believe the narrative that white people don't go through any hardships, they look for things to make themselves be in a position of, well, guess what? I'm oppressed too. I'm suffering too. And so to me, they were the first ones to strap that mask on and say, my life has to be altered so I can protect my fellow man. And think about it. The whole thing was, I'm wearing the mask to protect you. Like it was such nonsense. It was foolishness. But the person in the clip, I think the person is a transformer. So I don't know why I think that. I just feel like, because it's too, like, you got the F Trump in, you got the Adidas capitalism shirt on, you got the mask with the fist. You being trans would just wrap it all
Cherry
up.
on top.
Cherry
on top.
You know what I'm saying? To wrap it all up into one big woke monster, So yeah.
The only reason she wore the mask is to hide her 5 o'clock shadow.
Right.
Because she forgot to shave that day.
Hide that stubble.
Go ahead, Keisha.
So when I see a person in a mask, especially like today, or even like, a couple years ago, like I was like, okay, I feel like that was a great identifier of people who were psychotic. Like I was like, cool, got it. Stay away from you. I just felt like people, if I saw you in a mask, especially like in your car by yourself, you're crazy. Like you're crazy. Good, that's fine. At least I know. And I would say this, like, I feel like, again, just like if you listen to this show, you watch this show, communism is going to come up. If you watch this show, the education system is going to come up, or the public schooling system is going to come up. And I think a lot of this goes back to schooling. I remember having conversations with people in the medical industry. And when I was like, this does not make any sense. Why are we quarantining healthy people? Like, let's just think about that for 1 second. Why are we quarantining other people? And I would get the response of, well, the FDA says this, the CDC, all this talk, this is what those on high say, so this is what I must believe. And I'm like, where is your scientific curiosity? You've been in this field for a long time. Just think for a second. Like, it's okay to just think about it. It was none of that. It was just, this is the protocol. I'm not going to question it. This is what those on high say. So this is what we should do. And I'm like, this is really sad, because what was the point of going to school? What was the point of, what is school now for medical people? Just, well, it's not research anymore. It's not about like trying to find, is it just learn a protocol? Is that all doctoring is? I don't know. It was just so weird to me that there was no and I'm not going to say no, because there were doctors, well-renowned doctors who were trying to speak out about this, who were speaking out and being shut down. And I know I'm kind of veering off of kind of what we're talking about, but I just feel like this is indicative of the schooling system, because we had this mass pandemic and no one was thinking. It was just bizarre. Everybody was just like in the trance. I'm just like, okay, I'm out. So when they said 2 weeks to slow the spread, I was like, okay, my 2 weeks is up. We're out. I am not gonna, if it's gonna kill us, we're not gonna die on our knees. We out of here, girls. Let's go. So we just went about our business. I mean, Florida didn't really have any real restrictions, but so it was easy for us to do that. But I feel bad for people who lived in places like California or, just these liberal states where they really had no, there was nothing for them to do. So this, the mask thing, everything that she's saying, like, if you're not but here's another thing. You're so afraid of COVID, but you out marching and protesting. Like,
that's
why?
because everybody had a mask on.
Yeah.
She felt safe there.
If you think about it, Keisha, all the woke people, like social justice warriors, they all complied with the mandates and stuff. They was all jabbed up. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, that whole group was for all this stuff. They wanted all this lockdowns.
Well, it was a lot of people. It wasn't just the liberals. It was a lot of people who was like, yep, put it right there.
Oh no, most of the country got it. They most six billion worldwide.
It was crazy. It was really, really crazy.
But California, it was insane. California was insane. I literally felt like I was in the 60s, 50s and 60s. Like, you go to a restaurant and they say you got to eat outside. I was like, goodness, like I
was born by the river in a little tent.
If you went to an establishment,
like a river, I've been running ever since.
It's been a long
time. But people was gonna take it.
Oh yeah.
But I know change gonna come.
Man,
that's what you felt like with the mask mandate.
Listen, if you walked up to an establishment and you didn't have a mask on, you didn't have no vaccine card or that, the way they looked at you, it was like they were saying, "Get to the back, nigga." Like, they was just like,
wind up, knocking me. They say, go to the movies and go downtown. People keep telling me don't hang around. Hey, but true story. I went to a bank. I went to the bank one day, and I had my little mask on, and it was like I was just play around with it, hanging low. I wouldn't cover up my nose. I'd just be like, man, whatever. And I literally got into a screaming match with this white lady of all people. It's funny, if there was somebody who would have been recording that, it probably could have made the montage, because she's just, oh, can you please just put something she said about my mask not fitting properly, and she started getting all testy and got an attitude with me, and I just went off. I just went off, and she was so taken aback, and then from there. Literally, true story, right hand of God. She started telling me about all of the Black causes that she supports. Everything I love had nothing to do with what we were both going back and forth about. She started talking about how much she supports Black people and how all these Black causes she supports and the charities that she gives to and all the work she does. And I'm just like, lady, I can't remember what I said to her, because I lost it. I was going off. It's funny because after it happened, I got in my car and I got ready to drive back home, and I actually went live on Instagram after that, and I just was going off on Instagram like, y'all not gonna believe what the hell just happened to me when I was online at the bank. And the lady, one of the workers came to. I guess one of the reps came from out of her office to hear the commotion, And she walked up to me. She was a young black lady, and she was, asked me, "Hey, can you just please?" And I said, "All right, no problem." I said, "Okay." I said, "Listen, this is a private bank. If these are your rules, if I want to patronize the business, I mean, I had accounts with this bank, then fine. I'll do it. You work here. You come to me. You give me instructions. I'll follow. But this person who is a customer just like me,
Right.
I'm not accepting that from her. I apologize to the lady. I said, I don't mean to get an attitude with you. I get it, whatever. You're simply trying to do your job. I'm not here to have a, whatever with you. But if you say so, I'll do it. But this woman, she out of pocket. But yeah, she jumped on me and then starts talking about how much she supports black people. It had nothing to do with the mask, COVID, none of that. But she jumped off and wanted to start talking about how much she loved black people. True story.
I believe, like when people would say, did you get your vaccination? Have you had your chlamydia shot? Did you go
right?
Exactly. Why do people feel like, huh?
Like, are you still burning? Like,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. I was so offended when people would ask me that. Like, when did people think that they could just come up and ask you about your personal, private,
random strangers? Like, I'm talking about just, dude, in California, I was walking around with no mask, and people looked at me like I was insane. They was looking at me like,
"You ain't from around here, boss."
Look, they pulled me into the alley, but what you doing?
No, that happened to me in Chicago when I went.
White folks around here, what you doing? Put your mask on.
Y'all remember them old skits? Oh, go ahead, Jared.
Real quick. So I see this comment from Deontay Blade Ford, and I'm curious because I didn't see anything in the comment that you were comment section that you were responding to when you said that was a butchering of Ecclesiastes 2. Maybe you're responding to someone else, or perhaps you're responding to me when I said in Ecclesiastes we read that it's better to think about death than having a good time. If you are responding to me, I was actually referring to Ecclesiastes chapter 7, not chapter 2, where it says sorrow is better than laughter. Well, hold on, let me see. Ecclesiastes chapter 7. This is the King James Version. It says, starting in verse 1, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death is better than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance of the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, which the NLT translates as it's better to think about death, or it is wise to think about death. But the heart of the fool is in the house of mirth, which can be translated into the fool only thinks about having a good time, feasting, and partying. So unless I'm misunderstanding that verse, please enlighten me. And I'm not trying to come after you or anything like that. I'm honestly interested in a fruitful conversation. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there real quick. Do any of you have a comment on that before we move on to the next clip?
No, I was just in the Blanche reminded me of those old In Living Color skits when they would do the David Allen Greer, I think was the one who thought he was still a slave. He would always be trying to pull the black people to the side. When they was yeah, man, that's when these black entertainers, they were still liberal and woke back then, but every now and again they would try a little more creativity going on back then, because they would kind of poke fun at themselves and poke fun at the social justice black folks back then, but not no more though. Because they can't have a sense of humor about themselves,
right?
Because they feel as though their work is too serious, and then this is how you're really dealing with somebody. Yeah, it's so sacred that they can't be satirized, and they can't really be self-deprecating about themselves, because they feel as though their work is so serious that they can't be made fun of. And this is how that they got a problem. They got a real problem, because there's no humility there. They can't even make fun of themselves.
It's a good point.
I wanted to ask a question before we move on. Do you guys think that the word communism is overused?
No.
Okay.
I don't think it's used enough.
No.
I don't think it's enough either. I think because we're in the circle, the bubble that we're in, or circle that we're in, we hear it more often than other people, but I don't think people really understand that how close we are to, to that. But anyway, I just wanted to know what y'all thought.
People don't know what it means.
And most Black people associate communism with something that's dealing with white folks.
Yeah.
Like they are totally detached from communism. You talk to Black people about communism, they're like, huh? Talking about they have no connection to it.
Did you see that? You see that viral clip that was going around was Sexy Red, and she was getting interviewed by some guy, some podcaster or something, and he was reading off of a list. And I don't know if he was purposely trying to like make fun of her and she didn't realize she was a butt of a joke, but he was like saying all the things, like, because her name is Sexy Red, and of course red, communism, red being the color of communism. And he asked her that all the things that her name reminds him of, and he was like, yeah. And he was going down the list, and he said, communism. What do you think about that? And then she was like, I don't even know what that is. And she pulled her phone out. And she started like trying to like look it up, try to see if she could find a quick definition of it. She's like, yeah, I don't know what that is. It's like Sexy Red. Oh man, I thought that was hilarious. She's like, I don't know what that is.
And she's asking the perfect poster child for it. That's what's funny. Like.
That's what's funny. Yeah, I'm surprised y'all ain't seen. I'm surprised, Keisha. I'm surprised you ain't seen that.
I try to stay away from the Sexy Red stuff.
I think somebody had DM'd it to me, and I happened to watch it, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!"
That
like
could
I
be
said,
your
I
cousin,
don't know.
Keisha. You never know.
Huh?
So that could be your cousin. You never know. Sexy
She
Red.
might be my cousin. She could be my cousin, but that don't mean that don't mean anything. Okay.
All right, y'all stand by for the next clip.
Very cutthroat individual. I don't give second chances. I see things in very black and white. I don't do half stepping. There's no fence riding for me. If you are a person who took offense to being spoken harshly to by a member of the Black community, you don't belong in this movement. You have a problem being spoken to by a strong Black man or woman, you need to understand and think about why you felt bothered and offended by that. If you felt threatened by that, you need to ask yourself why. Why? Was it because they were Black, or is it because you felt embarrassed, or because they were right? If you got spoken down to, okay, check yourself. Why did it happen? Were they right? And if they weren't, did you go to them and say, I hear what you're saying, but this made me feel some kind of way? Did you respect them enough to have an adult conversation? All of this is fear-based. All of that is fear-based. Because then what happens is, oh, well, now you're afraid to show up. Now you're afraid to say anything. Why? Because now you're afraid? Did you verbalize that to the person who reprimanded you? No. Why? Why are you so afraid to talk to Black people? That's really, I don't understand. It's so.
Is it ingrained in you from birth or something?
I don't know. And I think it's hard for me because I grew up in such a diverse place. I don't understand that. But I forget that some people grew up in, really racist rural parts of the country.
Rural parts of the country, huh?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Chuck, because there's another clip. I'm not going to play it. That we played in the montage where there was a pastor, and you've all seen this. It's gone viral, where he's saying, "Shut your white mouth. If you don't have anything nice to say, shut your white mouth." And he says the same thing she says, which is a lot of y'all grew up in the South, rural America, and so it's interesting how these liberals, they kind of paint rural America or middle America or the South as this kind of scapegoat for racism or all that is racist. And this is a notion that it's far and wide. A lot of people believe it on all sides of the political spectrum that, oh, yes, those people, they are the racists because they don't like Black folks. When the reality is this whole notion started, and Chuck, you can correct me if I'm wrong, with this kind of elitist progressive ilk who runs. Yeah, they run the entertainment industry, they run journalism, they run academia and education. And so they have propagated this narrative that the racist boogeyman that you should all look out for is rural, is redneck, is Southern, is this, that, and the third. But if you really think about it, those who do occupy those spaces, the rural American, are generally people who keep to themselves and they use their hands to make their living.
Right.
And they might have some kind of resentment for people who don't do that, people who try to get by off the labor of someone else's hands, off the back of someone else's labor. And it's interesting that the left, the communists, they call them the working class, right? They try to basically win these people to their side or their political way of thinking by creating unions and trying to go after these kind of salt of the earth people. And they historically, especially in the early part of the 20th century, tried to pit rural working whites against rural working blacks. And I don't want to get into all of that, but it's interesting how they kind of paint the Southern rural American as the racist when the reality is there's no racism there. You might construe some of the attitudes of resentment that these folks have toward lazy people as quote unquote racism. But the reality is like, no, this whole concept of from each according to their ability to each according to their need does not work when you consider or factor in human nature, because we as human beings, be we rural or otherwise, we get upset when somebody's not pulling their own weight. And if you are a person who happens to live in one of these rural areas, and every time you turn on the television or every time you pick up a newspaper, you see Black folks protesting, causing trouble, this, that, and the third, you're going to then associate the Black struggle for trying to get off or trying to get over on the back of someone else's labor. So that's naturally going to cause resentment. But the reality is, to the extent that you have these elitist progressive types who are pointing the finger saying they are the racist, the right, white, redneck, rural, whatever, they're the racist. They're only saying that to the degree or to the extent that these Southerners are preoccupied with using their hands, using their labor, making their money to only support themselves. If they were genuinely anti-racist, they will do what we're doing in terms of using our vote, using our voice, using our quote unquote privilege to fight for someone else or to make America better for someone else. So they see virtue in their political actions. And to the extent that another white person isn't doing the same thing that I'm doing, it's to that extent that this rural redneck white person is a racist. I know I said a mouthful, but panel, feel free to do with that whatever you want, whether you want to respond to something I said or something in the clip.
No, Chad, you
go ahead, Chuck.
I was just going to say really quick that she is a very wealthy woman. You know how I can tell? Her hair. She has a really good hair color, like the blonde. No, I'm so serious. Like you can tell she spends quite a bit of money on her hair dye. The person who does her hair. That woman is. That's another indicator too, because a lot of these white liberals who espouse these things, they are wealthy people. They are like, oh, look at the little knickknacks. Let me help you. They think. Do you guys know Shamika Michelle?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she's hilarious. So she does this skit with her name is Karen Whitefield, and she's like, my daddy taught me about you guys, and I was at the grocery store and I thought she was gonna pull out, I saw a Black lady with her young, and I thought she was gonna pull out an EBT card, and oh my gosh, she had a debit card just like me. It was so funny. You have to go see it. But and she wears like this white blonde wig, but that's what they think. Like they think, because I don't know, that maybe because they are so wealthy that they assume that people just cannot get to their level. They just need that. They need all this help, and they just feel so bad for the little Blackies, and it's so ridiculous. But that woman, I guarantee you, she's wealthy.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Keisha, because there is this spirit of self-loathing amongst people who find success for whatever reason, especially those who inherit their wealth or who are, you know, part of wealthy families, wealthy
Yeah.
lineages. There's a very interesting documentary. I mean, not documentary. I apologize. A very interesting sort of I don't know if biography is the right word because it doesn't really hone in on one specific person. But there's an interesting book. I forgot who the authors are. It was co-authored. It's about the Rockefeller family and about the internal familial squabbles that they have going on, and how, you know, a lot of members of the Rockefeller family sort of feel this obligation, if you will, to give back, particularly to help popularize and push, you know, all of these left-wing agendas. Because, you know, for all of the, and again, I'm overly simplifying. It's a very interesting read, but I'm overly simplifying it. But pretty much, you know, because of their wealth and their opulence, it's almost like this charity, as they see it, is as an attempt to sort of make amends or pay a penance for their wealth, because there I think there is something inherent, and even, you know, great free market economists such as the late great Milton Friedman, you know, he talks about this, and other economists like, you know, Friedrich Hayek. I love Hayek. I talk about him a lot. They all talked about how things like inequality and poverty and all these sorts of things, these are things that are concerning. These are problems. These are issues that people of all political stripes genuinely care about. But it's sort of the way you go about it. And of course, you know, I'd be preached to the choir, but of course we know that the left and all of their cockamamie schemes and ideas, these things just don't work. But for again, Keisha, but to your point though, for some reason, there is this self-loathing. These people have time to engage in these sort of avant-garde ideas about all sorts of things, from economics to marriage and sex, even, and, you know, all sorts of other cultural issues, because you know, some of them, I guess, see themselves as they are our self-appointed moral betters who seek to impose their vision upon people who did not ask for their assistance. It goes back to what Chad is talking about when he talks about these ideas, these concepts of racism. You know, and of course, this is like a middle America, a southern, a rural phenomenon. Because a lot of these racist ideas, you know, they come from the ivory tower. They come from, you know, academia, and, you know, a lot of sort of more urban places, if you will. And a lot of them had these same sorts of ideas when it came to the northern ghetto. So we can talk about rural, I guess. I mean, she didn't mention rural poverty per se, but she did talk about, you know, rural peoples. But when it comes to, you know, like the rural middle class or lower class, and I hate to even use the word class and try to break it up in this way, but I'm forced to kind of use their language if I'm going to discuss them. But they had these similar attitudes to certain discrepancies and disparities that they saw in northern ghettos when it came to newly arrived immigrants from, you know, parts of Eastern Europe, and even, you know, parts of Southern Europe like Italy, and Northern Europe, say like Ireland, when hordes of Irish came to the United States as a result of the documented potato famine in Ireland in the 1860s. And you see, you had all sorts of things going on, and you had people who felt as though the living conditions of newly arrived immigrants was a travesty, was a moral crime, if you will, that was being committed against other human beings. But again, it just simply begs the question that what sort of salary do you think newly arrived immigrants can command so as to be able to afford the sorts of living accommodations that you feel as though is suitable for a human being? Perhaps maybe they were living in the only source of living accommodations that they can afford, or maybe they just didn't spend as much money on housing accommodations as they otherwise would have had they not been repatriating funds across the Atlantic in order to bring some of their other family members who too were suffering as a result of the famines across Europe, or as a result of the ongoing internal or intra tribal, so to speak, a warfare going on, and that was going on, and that's been going on ever since. Speaking of areas like Ukraine, Romania, Poland, etc., and the Baltic areas, peoples were fleeing Eastern Europe and all from all over the world coming to the United States, and they were trying to sort of find a way to make it all work. Fresh from Ellis Island, and you had intellectuals at the time who were decrying what they considered to be slum conditions. And simply because you make an issue to try and raise housing accommodations or come up with affordable housing or whatever the case may be, does not mean that your meddling is going to alleviate slum conditions. It doesn't work that way. The same way that these northern intellectuals and their meddling in rural culture was not going to alleviate racism as they saw it. These are just people who are so self-congratulatory and self-exalting that they are simply high on their own a sense of moral superiority. It's just humility, as they say, is the first step towards virtue. I think that was Chesterton who said that, and you can clearly see that these people are not humble. So
if a man doesn't work, he don't eat. So there we go.
Go ahead, Blanche.
Well, I just want to say about this notion, even the way they say to give back. The Bible speaks about charity, but in God's charity is not us giving back as if we took something. I think even the language behind this stuff is problematic, because this giving back implies that you got where you are at the expense of the common man and woman, and that's not true. And so I don't even like a lot of philanthropy. To me, I don't even like it, because it's under this guise of wokeness. Like, we got to give back. No, you're not giving back. You didn't take. Somebody in your family had to start from scratch somewhere, earn, work, and then they started. Each generation got better and better. But rarely have we seen people just take to get there. Well, it don't make any sense. But when they say this whole giving back, I just don't like giving back. Just say you're doing charity. You say you want to clothe the naked and feed the hungry and leave it at that. All that giving back goes into a whole nother bag of supremacy, colonialism, imperialism, and all stealing the land, all this nonsense.
Right, oh, I see what you're saying. Because of the words that they're using, like you're starting to kind of prime people for
I'm giving back. Yeah. Like, you didn't take what you're not giving. You just helping somebody out. Stop saying you giving back, because the giving back implies that you superior and all this nonsense. Foolishness. Somebody had to work.
And to your point, Blanche, I just want to also say this. You sparked something in me. Based on what you just said, is that what this also does for the giver in this case. You're talking about giving back, or giving resources and giving things to the less fortunate or whatever. Again, it all goes back to the heart of the person, because what also tends to happen is that the giver, I guess in a sense, feels this sense of superiority again over the person that they are giving to. It's almost like this. It's almost like this resentfulness, in the sense that they have towards the person who they kind of think is not capable of sort of getting up and doing for themselves. It kind of makes them feel, it enhances, if you understand what I'm saying, this sense of superiority when they kind of go on and carry on with this quote unquote giving attitude, if you will. It's a very sick and twisted codependent relationship. It's very strange.
That's why you notice they never talk about Black people with empowerment. Like they never speak about Black people in the sense of Black people have already, think about it. They never say, yeah, Black folks have accomplished, they've achieved, they've done this, they don't speak like that. They say, oh, Black people need you to remove your foot from their neck so they can just breathe.
Here it is, guy. Here it is, because I've tried to sort of explain it in my own way, but here's the quote that I think encapsulates it brilliantly, because this person said it so well, and that is that it says that a transfer of wealth, and we're talking about monetary, right, goods and property, income, etc. A transfer of wealth can lead to a growth in the envy of the recipient of the giver's character. And so the person kind of fit, and I thought that was Thomas Sowell, and I kind of took it and tried to put it in my own words, because again, when you're talking about human capital, character, and these kinds of intangible things, when a person gives their wealth, they almost feel as though by doing so they have become richer in character over that of the recipient. And so from a cosmic point of view, you can still find imbalance and inequality wherever you want to find it, if you're actually looking for it. Evidence in this case by this belief that you are superior in character because you're able to give when someone else is not.
Yeah. Shout out to Will. He said he left a $20 super chat. Where are my words? He says, "Here's more reparations just to prove my love for y'all." Thanks, Will.
No, Blanche, you feeling the love? You feel like he love you enough, Blanche? Or you got to give some more.
Oh, I'm gonna bleed him dry.
Okay.
What book was that from, Chuck? That quote?
That was Thomas Sowell. That was actually Cosmic Visions.
Okay.
We got another one from Dayon. "Liberals are just modern day Sadducees believing themselves to be righteous by their good works." That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
What's the difference between a Sadducee and a Pharisee? Like as far as like works based.
That's a good question.
Yeah, from what I understand, and I looked into this briefly. I don't claim to be a scholar when it comes to Jewish history, but the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they are but two of very many different sects in ancient Israel in terms of their political structure is concerned. But put simply, the Pharisees and the Sadducees were people who were, I guess they were religious, but they were not as, and those of you in the comment section could help me out here or correct me where I'm wrong. But the Sadducees were beholden to Rome more so than the Pharisees, who
were beholden to the Jewish customs
tradition.
And traditions.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So that's, I guess, the most simple. Obviously, it's more deeper than that. And Josephus gave a pretty robust rundown of the different sects and the insurrections during the days of Israel's, I guess, subordination to Rome and all the things. So anyway, I do encourage people to look into the accounts that Josephus was able to publish. Let's see here.
Hold on. They're saying in the chat that Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection or miracles. And then Stem says Sadducees are very liberal, didn't believe in the resurrection.
Right.
But the Pharisees would not have believed in most of them would. I don't think they would have believed in it either.
No, they would have believed in a. No, they would have believed in a Messiah. No, they would have believed in a Messiah. Coming. Returning, but just not the one that came. But they're more law based. More.
Yeah. But even some of Jesus's disciples had a misunderstanding of who the Messiah would be and how he would come and what not necessarily who the Messiah. They believed Jesus to be the Messiah, but they miscalculated what his purpose is, and they argued with each other over who would sit at his right hand, who would sit at his left hand once he overthrows Rome and occupies Israel as a world superpower, as an empire, and that's what they believed Jesus would do then and now, where Jesus basically said, "My kingdom is not of this world." But anyway, very fascinating stuff.
Sorry. Yeah, it is.
They
It
sound
really
like
is.
some woke black people, though. Doesn't sound like some woke. They sound like some woke revolutionaries. When you go,
but Jesus set them straight.
Rome.
But Jesus set them straight, and that's so fascinating to me when you consider our current political kind of fight: Republican versus Democrat, right versus left, and we all have this kind of misconstrued idea of what the purpose of these parties are,
right,
and what will happen once they get into power, and once the Republicans have full control over the executive, legislative, and judicial, or once the Democrats get control, and what we will do, and this, that, and the third. And it's like you see, in the same way that many of us are foolish when it comes to politics, you see, again, Jesus' disciples foolish, and they kind of wrestled with it, and they like their agenda. They oftentimes they put at the forefront, only for Jesus to like correct them and to sober them and to help them understand, like, no, look, my kingdom is not of this world. You are to be fishers of men, not be a crusader or a zealot for this kind of political cause that you don't understand. Your purpose should be to be my disciple. He tells Peter, if you love me, you'll listen to me. He asked him 3 times, Peter, do you love me? If you love me, you'll feed my sheep. If you love me, you'll do this. So it's like, so that like Jesus is reorienting his disciples in terms of putting their agenda before them. And I think we stand to learn a lot from that. Anyway, very fascinating stuff. Everett Randolph, check out Dr. Tom Cohen. Man. And doctors Mark and Samantha Bailey. They have an interesting perspective about viruses. Thank you for that nugget, Everett. Appreciate it. And thank you for the $5 super chat. Really appreciate it. Idris Singleton. Yes, Blanche would have been class of 91 AAP high.
AA5. Wait, is that no, not 5. Phi is PA5, isn't it?
I think he's talking about Ann Arbor Pioneer High School. I think that's what he's.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh.
Ann Arbor Pi High. Yeah. And then we got one from Cruise Missile, $5 super sticker. No comment. Appreciate it. So closing remarks. I'll go first. On this question of white liberals, you might be wondering why in the middle part of season 2, we're just now getting into the whole concept of white liberals. We've managed to make it a whole season and a half without really bringing up the subject. And the reason for that is, unlike a lot of your Black victims, we don't spend a lot of time thinking about what white people think about us. I'm sorry, but we don't. And so that's why it's taken so long to get to this subject. We probably are never going to touch on this subject as directly as we did tonight, again, because we are busy, concerned, and focusing on our own families, our own affairs, as opposed to what someone else think about us, if that makes sense. But, you know, very interesting topic tonight. You didn't hear any of us say the old tired Black Republican talking point of white leftists. They're the real racists, because that's tired. It just is. I mean, we have more interesting things to say on the subject. But yeah, namely that, again, this is bigger than man. This is bigger than, as Blanche put it earlier, and as the Bible puts it, a battle between flesh, but rather it is a spiritual one, and everyone vying, as I just alluded to, with the Pharisees and with the Sadducees and with even some of Jesus' disciples, to erect their own kingdom via politics. So whether my favorite part of tonight was Blanche's commentary. Excuse me. My favorite commentary tonight was Blanche's, when he talked about, look, the same things I'm going to say about white liberals or leftists in general, I'm going to say about conservatives. The fact is, there's just a lot of ignorance, and I'm not going to put it as eloquently or as clearly as Blanche put it, but the fact of the matter is, when you look at populism or the fact that people are running around calling themselves Republicans or Democrats, not really fully understanding the political philosophy, which acts or is supposed to act as the basis for the parties that they claim to be adherents to. What you get is a lot of people running around like, with their heads cut off, misunderstanding the fact that truly they are pawns in this system, which is well on its way to socialism, next stop communism, next stop globalism. And so I'm going to say what I always say and continue to say, which is that we all must be born again. We all must repent and reorient ourselves to the word of God, because that is the only thing that makes sense in this dark and dying world. Will hand it off to Chuck.
Yeah, just on that quote again, about a transfer of wealth can lead to growth in the envy of the recipient of the giver's character. I neglected to mention the fact that it cuts both ways as well. Someone receiving someone else's property or wealth or what have you can begin to envy the person that gave it to them, because they see that person as being higher, if you will, in character than they are. And so there are an infinite number of ways to divide, if you will, pit one person against another for various reasons, right? And once you do that, you dissect something, you bifurcate something, you can simply take one half of that thing that was once whole and repeat the process all over again. And so in the quest for cosmic justice, it never stops. And I guess I'll quote again here when Thomas Sowell says that envy was once considered to be one of the 7 deadly sins before it became one of the most admired virtues under its new name, social justice. And that's what the white liberal is all about, is this notion of social justice. It's really vice, and it's a vice that stems from their lack of humility. And conservatives can also suffer from this vice as well. I was talking to Chad privately a few days ago, and I made the point to communicate to him that I feel as though conservatives are doing the same thing as liberals are doing in many respects. It's just that they believe that their causes are righteous as opposed to the left's causes. And you're seeing this sense of hubris amongst a lot of conservatives who quite simply are not using not just the full breadth of their faculties, but they are becoming unanchored and unmoored, if you will, and almost a bit. I think fanatical is too strong a word, but yes, I'm seeing a lot of problems amongst conservatives as well. Hence, what I started out with when we asked the question about the Candace Owens Daily Wire issue. It's funny to me that a lot of conservatives seem to take up issue with the United States support of Israel, ironically, while this current administration is calling for the removal of Israel's prime minister in the middle of a war. You make that make sense. But now these very same conservatives don't seem to have as much to say about, for example, the state of Iran, who is probably less than a year away from acquiring a nuclear weapon. So I just wonder what exactly is going on here. Would we be safer? Would the world be a lot safer with nuclear weapons in the hands of the Iranians? I don't know. It's just, of course I know, but again, I will do a deeper dive into this topic on my YouTube channel on my own time, because I want to be able to be clear, to just freely speak for myself. Not that I'm restricted or anything like that, when I'm here, but I just don't want my opinions and attitudes to be misconstrued for someone else's, so I can do that alone. But yeah, we're suffering from this there's this lack of humility, and I think that is baked into our constitutional framework from the moment of our founding. Our founders understood, and this is why they left a system in place so as to protect the not just the needs and the wants of the common man, but to simply give his opinions, if you will, their fair space to be executed, by creating a system that can protect us against the in vogue avant-garde attitudes of the day, or the rising political characters or political groups of the day. Because there was this belief that pretty much no one outside of God had this kind of monopoly on how things should go, and no particular idea should remain, if you will, this sort of prevailing, untouchable dogma into perpetuity, because of course that breeds tyranny. And so for all of this talk that these white liberals and black liberals alike, and Jewish liberals and Chinese liberals and any other kind of liberal who sort of has this kind of statist mentality as part of their overall orientation, that's what they fail to realize when they criticize the American experiment. Because they look at conservatism, they take the meaning of the word conservatism and they infuse their own biases based upon their misunderstanding and misappropriation of the term, because they're simply taking the definition of the word and they're assuming that conservatism means to conserve entrenched power. And so to kind of want to, and that's why we always ask the question, what exactly are we trying to conserve? And so you get the tagline as being a reactionary when you are against the movement of progress toward something tantamount to perfection. But we are in fact trying to conserve, as we are trying to conserve space at the table for the common man, which is what I believe our Constitution enshrined. And that's it.
Nice. Thank you for those comments. The ever so wise Mr. Chuck Littleton. Looks like we got super chat from 02122, $10. I played Uncle Tom 2 at my local college Democrat Socialist Club. I was banned from campus for trespassing. Also, I don't even go there, but I'm sure that's unrelated. Hashtag trespassers for Trump. 02122 is fighting the good fight. Appreciate it. We also got one from Vintage Goods 1551 Willie. Russians now have a blackety black Jesus. That's news to me. I did not know that.
Yeah, Putin came out and said he looked at something and Jesus was black. I said, "Oh my
gosh!" But no, we got a lot of conservatives. They love Putin. We got a lot of Russophiles in the neo-populist conservative coalition. But that's okay though. That's okay, because folks think that Russia partnered up with China is what's in the best interest of the United States as Russia begins to ascend on the world stage. They think that bodes well for the United States. Anyway, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm taking cheap shots because I got an opinion and I can't help it, but I'm gonna stop.
This is Clown World. Blanche, your closing remarks.
Yeah. Do white liberals mean well? I'm sure that some of them do. But does the white liberals' plans, will they end well? No. I think that the liberals' goal can't be to defeat conservatives, and the conservatives' goal can't be to defeat liberals. The goal has to be for the best version of America. And I think what we're seeing now is a competition between liberals and conservatives, because quite honestly, neither side is probably actually fully conservative or fully liberal. It's just them adopting ideologies that they feel more attached to at the time. I think true conservatism and true liberalism probably are closer related than they are this far apart in these modern times. I would just say that the intent matters, what people are doing. And I just think that now what we're seeing is, well, what's going to happen is this emerging of these two parties coming together. And I can just see these two parties merging and becoming one. And once we have this one big party where everybody wants to, saying kumbaya, it's going to be a wrap. Because once I don't know what they're going to call it, the new republic, liberal, I don't know what they're going to call it. But my point is that I just think that the goal of what we're doing can't be to war against the flesh. We can't be trying to outdo this person, outdo that. Like even with Candace Owens, do I believe that Candace Owens is genuinely a conservative? No. Do I believe Candace Owens is purely, her intents are pure in what she's doing even now? No. Does she have great points? Yeah, but do I fully believe? No, I don't. And again, I don't even believe she's really fully conservative. But my point is that, again, you have folks in these both movements that are trying to make money. You have folks that are trying to spread a different kind of agendas. And you probably have a small percentage on both sides who actually want to see America better. And to me, that's who I have to, put some hope in, those people, not these folks that we see today.
Right. Very, very great points. Keisha, you have the final word, and go ahead and close out the show.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. So I will say that first, let me just really quick on the Candace thing and Ben Shapiro. Behind the scenes, I used to go to bat for Candace because I thought she was getting a bad rap. Like, I was like, she's young. She's figuring this out before everybody. Like we've all had, y'all have heard me say, you kind of go through a journey. Just over time, some of the stuff is just so nasty and so just, whatever. And I think just coming from the music industry, being in politics, when, fame is a hell of a drug, and people will do a lot of stuff and will, walk over people and do all kinds of stuff to maintain their position. It's kind of, like what we've been talking about, what Blanche has said, and what Chuck, everybody has said, that, the heart is desperately wicked. And so, and we should be, as believers, we should always be striving for better. We should always be looking back, looking to, did I handle that person correctly? Did I, maybe I do need to apologize, maybe I do need to repent, or, do those types of things. And when we don't take a moment to examine our own hearts, you can get yourself down a road where you look back and you don't really know how you got there. I don't have anything against, Candace or anything like that. She has a very big platform. I want her soul to be saved. And I hope that she can reach a lot of people with a biblical Christianity that's pure. And so, that is my hope for her. As far as the liberals, this is again for Christians. If anyone, I don't care what color they are, I don't care what political affiliation they are of, if anyone is trying to tell you that they can get you to some higher place, or they're going to give you something, they are placing themselves above you, and they are not Christ the King, they are not doing you well. They are not doing you good. I don't care how they try to dress it up and make it seem like it's something good. If they are trying to say that through them is some type of salvation, some type of freedom, liberation, that they themselves are the ally that you've been seeking and wanted, that is a lie from the pit of hell. And if you are a believer and somebody is saying this to you, and because we do have these wicked hearts that the Bible tells us that we have, and that need to be renewed through Christ, there might be something in you that may sound appealing. That may sound, your flesh is going to like it. It's going to, you're going to want to go towards it. Do not submit these things before the Lord, especially in these times, because we know that the Bible says that as time comes near, that Christ comes back, even the very elect, he's going to come back, because the deception is going to be so good. It is going to be really, really good. It's going to sound right. Submit these things before the Lord and wait on his word. Read his word so you know what is to come. But thank you guys again for watching. We will see you next Sunday at 7:30-ish because we're still Black. Thank you for watching Cutting Through the Culture. We will see you next
Hold on,
time.
Keisha. Hold on, Keisha. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
Encore.
Chad. I'm sorry, Chad. Let me read this. Let me read this. Whoa, bad take, Blanchard. Some bad takes tonight. Sad when Christians choose a Israel first small hat over a conservative Black woman. That's disappointing. Now, did anyone on this panel accuse Candace Owens of, I don't know, siding with a turban, hijab wearing Muslim over anybody else? I don't think anyone did. Or was France not being France first when they helped us win the Revolutionary War against the British? What the hell are you talking about? Let me shut this panel down. I'll be back in a couple weeks. Teaching Chuck YouTube channel. I'm gonna address all this. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen written in all of my time on this show. And Danny is he frequents the show. Never really had much to say or taken up issue of anything that he had to say. But that was real dumb. That was real dumb. I'm sorry.
Well,
in an interconnected world, okay, international conflicts don't work out this way. Anyway, you're gonna find yourself encircled on all sides because that's how alliances work. You have to make them in order to survive in a world that has gone global. This is not the same Earth of 6-7 centuries ago, homeboy. It don't work that way. But there are a lot of other countries involved in the creating of the United States, as I just mentioned France a second ago. But anyway, I guess we would have won a Revolutionary War against the British had we not had help from others who were not Americans or who were not colonists. This is stupid, man. Anyway, I ain't got nothing to say. I shut the chat down because I don't even want
to be continued.
Hold on, bro.
Let me say this.
Go ahead. No, but listen, all I said was, do I believe that Candace Owens is all her actions are pure intention? No, I don't. I'm not saying she's horrible. I'm just saying I don't. If she sees the opportunity, yes, that's my belief. I still like Candace. I still watch her show. Ain't no hard feelings. I'm not picking nobody over nobody. That's all I said.
I don't have issue with Candace Owens necessarily either. And Blanche, you know, he points out things that nefarious Jewish people do all the time. I don't know if you follow Blanche's content, but he does. So this whole notion of a Black conservative versus some Israeli small hat, I don't even use that kind of language. That's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And I'm in the belly of the beast. I'm right outside of Dearborn, Michigan. Since people want to talk so tough and since they want to act so bad, say the kind of things that I say and then try to walk down a majority Muslim neighborhood and see how far you make it. Because this really means put something on the line. Ain't no Jewish person messing with you. You scared of them. You scared of them Muslims because they don't play about their business. So you don't talk about them, but you will sit up here and try to kick Jewish people around. I'm not putting up with that. I'm not putting up with that. Don't talk. I know. Anyway, I've been living here and living in this area my whole life. No, I'm putting something on the line. I got skin in the game because they right here in my backyard, and I don't hide from nobody.
And they'll cut your head off. All you Negrostidians, they'll cut your head off. Trust me.
Yeah.
Let me just end on this note. And I think I can speak for everybody as we close this out. This show is for discussion. Yes, we tend to agree on a lot of the same things, but we don't always agree. And what we are going to do is we're not going to do, name calling and things like that. Not at people's, not at their religion. We're not Muslims, and we don't even do that. Like we don't do that because they still, let's just be respectful.
But Christ is the only way, though.
Let me get there.
I'm not Jewish and I'm not Muslim for a reason, because I believe Christ is the way.
Right.
But that's why I started off my whole commentary by saying, for me, this is not about theology, in my opinion. For me, you know, and I'm willing to listen to anyone who wants to make a case or make an argument centered around you know, the varying beliefs between, you know, Muhammad and whatever the case may be, and what Jesus said and what Paul said and what this person said, what that person said. I'm all ears. I'm all ears, because I'm humble enough to understand that that's not my wheelhouse. I need to fall back, listen, and learn. Okay. And so, but to Keisha's point, that's not what we do here. That's not what we do here, because some of the greatest people. I brought up Milton Friedman. David Horowitz is a great example for me. I love Dennis Prager. I love Mark Levin. Say what you want to say about him. Mark Levin, in my humble opinion, is this nation's leading constitutional expert, a Jewish man who is a conservative. And I can guarantee you that Jews on the left, leftist Jews, don't have kind words to say about any of the figures that I've just named. This conversation is far more complex than what a lot of people are willing to accept. The reality is that there is this sort of elitist strain amongst academics and intellectuals that promote in this kind of statism, regardless of what their ethnicity may be. And so those are some of the questions and some of the things that we need to unpack. This sort of wholesale lambasting of a group of people, even the ways in which we talk about these issues, when we say the Jews, as if there is a specific group of people that just embody what it means to be Jewish. But yet and still, when you have Christians who make cases for leftism in the name of Christianity, we say that they are promoting a bastardized gospel. We don't say that the Christians are doing this. We say that people who have heretical interpretations of Christianity are doing this. But Judaism and communism are just as antithetical as Christianity and communism, but we don't give Judaism the same grace. We make it seem as though communism and Judaism is one, just because Jews or Jewish peoples, or those who were ethnic Jews, played a huge hand in the proliferation of communism worldwide. We make it seem as though this is a Jewish thing, as if it is something that is synonymous with their religion. I reject that. And like I said, as I mentioned, I'm gonna bring the heat in a couple of weeks. Just wait.
And I'm gonna back up what Chuck said. There's no all of one group doing anything. There are certain people with power and power of each groups that do all of it. So it ain't just the Jews. It's China got elites that do stuff. India, like everybody, America, everybody got people in their group that's pulling these, doing all this crazy stuff. So again,
so-called Christians. There is no
any group.
Since we overtime, do we really think that the devil has respect of person of whom he will not make?
Zero.
If somebody is open to be used,
zero.
He's going to use you. If you're open to be used, he will use you. So there's not a religion, there's not a group of people, there is not a race, there is not there is. Everybody can get the smoke according to the devil. He will use whom is open to be used. And everybody can get the grace that Jesus only can give. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for watching. We will see you next time. We love you. Good night.
Y'all take care.
Good night. All right, y'all.